Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the work session meeting agenda for October 8th, 2024. Can you hear me?
I don't think so.
Tom, I don't know if we got any volume on these. You could hear me? Now you could hear me.
Hello.
Now the world can hear us.
If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And if General Washington can start us off. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could remain standing for a moment of silence as we just passed the anniversary of October 7th. I'd like us to keep in our prayers the hostages that are still being held, the non-combatants that are paying the price for this evil attack of terrorism, and pray that there's peace found, the hostages returned home, and blessings to all who are serving to try to make this happen for us. And a special prayer for those in Florida as Hurricane Milton comes down on them. Thank you. Please be seated. So before we go into open session, Councilman Esposito wanted to say something.
Yeah. Hello. Okay. Columbus Day is coming up, and I feel that I don't know if it's working. Okay. All right. That's much better. And I don't know if many of us understand the actual origin of Columbus Day and what Columbus Day really means. It really has little to do with Christopher Columbus. So I'm going to read you an article. It's called The Lynching That Gave Us Columbus Day. It's by an author named Louis Navarre. On March 14, 1891, 11 Italians were lynched in New Orleans. It was the largest mass lynching in the American South. It took place the day after 9 of the men had been acquitted in the trial of the murder of New Orleans police chief David Hennessy. 2 of the lynching victims were not on trial for any crime. Newspapers after the deed reported with delight that a wild mob numbered by thousands avenged the murder of Chief Hennessy, informing the public that the wretched Sicilian band had been butchered. This is the newspaper. The men were not a band of anything. They were working-class immigrants. They were employed as dock workers, cobblers, fruit vendors, and tinsmiths. One was a laborer on a plantation. They were ordinary immigrants who had arrived in the United States to build a better life for themselves and their families. I'm going to skip through because the article is kind of long. This explains the approval of the lynching of these European men in It was during the hostile climate that a new word was introduced into the American English. It remains associated with Italians and Italian Americans to this day. That word was mafia. Mafia is actually a dirty word when you refer to Italian people as that. It's not this glorified thing that you see on TV and you know, The Sopranos and all that. This explains the approval that the lynching of these European men in New Orleans elicited at that time. This was an era, after all, when the lynching was a public spectacle. Lynchings were often announced beforehand in local newspapers. Advertisements indicated the time and place where the public was invited to attend the rally and to join the mob. In the case of these doomed Italians, one local newspaper, the Times Democrat, ran an advertisement on March 14, 1891 that read in part, "All good citizens are invited to attend a mass meeting to remedy the failure of justice." Newspaper editorials encouraged these killings. The daily states advocated mob action to remedy the failure of justice against the Italians. The Italians were acquitted. Rise, people of New Orleans. Alien hands of oath-bound assassins have set the blot of a martyr's blood on our vaunted civilizations. The Italian consul in New Orleans at the time, Pasquale Corti, was terrified. He well understood the blood of innocents tainted American culture as it forged ahead. He contacted Louisiana Governor Francis Nichols, asking for the intervention of law enforcement to prevent mob violence. Nichols, who was scheduled to leave office the following spring, declined to take action. Nichols was declined to take action. He told Corte that it was a matter for New Orleans city government officials. Corte then contacted New Orleans Mayor Joseph Shakespeare. The mayor, with hours slipping by until public invitation for a mob to assemble and take things into their own hands, did not meet with the Italian diplomat. Corte was dejected. He had seen this play out before. He knew that the silence of the governor and mayor would be interpreted as permission. The police would stand by and watch without intervening. Corte was right. The next morning, the good citizens responded to the call. Thousands assembled at the statue of Henry Clay in New Orleans near the prison, riled themselves up, and the mob rushed down the streets to lynch the men. They broke into the prison while the men were trapped. 2 days later, on March 16, 1891, the New York Times published an editorial. The New Orleans Affair, they called it. The Northern newspaper approved, nor can there be any doubt that the mob's victims were desperate ruffians and murderers. These sneaking and cowardly Sicilians, the descendants of bandits and assassins who have transported to this country the lawless passions, the cutthroat practices, and the oath-bound societies of their native country, are to us a pest without mitigation. Our own rattlesnakes are as good citizens as they. Our own murderers are men of feeling and nobility compared to them. These men of the mafia killed Chief Hennessy. Lynch law was the only course open to the people of New Orleans to stay the issue of a new license to continue its bloody practices. To Corte, this was a final outrage. Italy had to respond. His patience for the lawless nature of American society had run out. Italy, on his recommendation, demanded that the U.S. arrest and prosecute the mob leaders and provide compensation to the victims' families. The administration of Benjamin Harrison refused. This was a domestic matter and had nothing to do with Italy, the White House explained. The Italian government withdrew its ambassador to Washington, D.C. In protest, the U.S. then withdrew its diplomatic representatives in Rome. And Italy and the U.S. were on the verge of war with each other. Harrison, however, was troubled by the incident. He wanted to be remembered for rehabilitating U.S. foreign policy, especially after both the Mexican-American and Civil War had tarnished American prestige in the world. The United States was seen as an aggressor, invading a neighbor. It was held in contempt, a nation of untamed people who had engaged in fratricide over slavery. Harrison was a man noted for his personal integrity and sense of decency. Considering this was a time of scandal and unscrupulous robber barons and corrupt politicians, he knew that the lynching in New Orleans was morally wrong. He knew Italians faced bigotry and institutionalized discrimination. He knew they faced mob violence throughout the land. He wanted to make things right and in the process show the world a different side of America. He settled on two courses of action. First, he agreed to pay each family of the lynched Italians $25,000, a substantial sum, in 1891. Then he did something remarkable. He decided to use the office of the president to acknowledge the contributions of Italians and Italian Americans into the United States. An American president, for the first time, would affirm officially the rightful place of Italians in the fabric of American life, turning a new page in how Protestant America saw Catholic immigrants. No longer, he wanted to make clear, would the racist editors of the New York Times approve of the lynching of anyone in the United States without rebuke. But how could this second objective be accomplished? He realized nothing would affirm the place of Italians better than a presidential proclamation to honor a prominent Italian whose contribution were unquestioned. Who would that be? His staff compiled a list of notable Italians: Dante Alighieri, Michelangelo Buonarroti, Christopher Columbus, Galileo Galilei, Marco Polo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Amerigo Vespucci, among other luminaries. Harrison decided on Christopher Columbus. Why? Look at the calendar, the article reads. The year was 1892, and it marked the 400th anniversary of Columbus's landing in the islands that today comprise of the Bahamas. What fortuitous coincidence for Columbus, he writes. When Italian officials were informed of this extraordinary mea culpa from the United States, they were elated. Italy, following the steps of France after the Civil War, announced it would give the United States a statue of Christopher Columbus to be delivered to New York for this celebratory occasion. Italian Americans were overwhelmed. In New York, they assembled in the southwest entrance of Central Park at the intersection of 8th Avenue, Central Park West, Broadway, and 59th Street, Central Park South, to hold rallies. This intersection was then known as the Circle. City officials announced that it would be renamed Columbus Circle, the place where the statue of Christopher Columbus would be placed for all time once it arrived. This is how the New York Herald reported the unveiling of the statue October 13th, 1892. Italians, the countrymen and descendants of Columbus, gave yesterday to the metropolis of the New World, which he discovered, his statue crowning a graceful and enduring monument to his memory. A vast multitude filled with all the space in the great circle in the 8th Avenue and 59th Street. A multitude typical in its cosmopolitan nature of the great city, and a young girl, the American daughter of Italian-born parents, drew the cords that revealed the glorious work of art and sealed a new bond of friendship between the land of our ancestors and the land of her birth. It would have been a thrill to be in New York City that day. President Harris's intention was for Columbus Day to be a one-time holiday. There was popular acclamation for an annual observance. However, that's why it became a national holiday. Columbus Day is a bold affirmation of the dignity. This is what Columbus Day is. It's a bold affirmation of the dignity of Italian identity in the United States. Over the almost 13 decades that it has been observed, it has evolved into an expression of Italian-American pride and has really very little to do with the man who sailed the ocean blue. And I will say this, as a final thing. I know that there's been a lot of controversy to rename Columbus Day as Indigenous People Day. Whoever is making those claims does not really know that Columbus Day is really about the unfair persecution of a human race, and shouldn't we all be behind that? So next week on Monday, forget about discovering America, although that was a big thing, whether you agree with it or not, but think about what it really means and what this country has strived to become. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. All right, thank you very much, Sergio. We'll start our discussions. We have the Pines Bridge Monument Committee.
Thank you, Supervisor, and a great history lesson, Sergio, and a great segue to your first topic. Good evening. Let me begin by saying the regiment behind me was frisked at the door, and this is not a coup d'etat. However, there is no doubt we are armed with passion and dedication to bring Yorktown 250 to life in a meaningful and honorable way. My name is James Strapoli, executive of Club Fit of over 30 years, and one of the original members of the Pines Bridge Monument Committee. Our goal this evening is to strengthen the bonds with you, the town leadership, as we endeavor toward this great nation's celebration of our 250th year of independence with local flair. Flashback almost 50 years ago, how many of us were proudly dressed in red, white, and blue, waving small U.S. flags as our nation celebrated 1976 and the 200th birthday. How cool it was to collect those quarters that marked that occasion. There is no doubt the proverbial blood, sweat, and tears our Pines Bridge Committee devoted for close to a decade to bring the monument to fruition is so minuscule compared to the lives lost during that specific battle we honored and all the battles fought since by the brave women and men of our armed forces. There is no doubt that the Yorktown Town Board on February 18th, 2020, adopted a resolution having the foresight to team up with the United States Congress, the Office of the New York State Historian, and Westchester's very own Revolutionary Westchester 250. There is no doubt in that resolution, Yorktown 250 Commission was established and charged with the local organization and development of commemorative events, including but not limited to the recognition of the local Battle of Pines Bridge. The groundwork has already been completed with the Yorktown Landmark Preservation Committee and their dedicated chairperson, Lynn Briggs, to ensure that all local events will be complementary to one another and that schedules will be carefully planned to avoid any overlap of governmental resources. There is no doubt those before you will build not only awareness through passionate education of what made that regiment so unique, but bring excitement and a spotlight to our local community and economy, with the events being planned for the weekend, May 2nd and 3rd of 2026. Events that will strive to enlighten both the young and the old of how a regiment comprised of African Americans, Native Americans, and those of European descent stood shoulder to shoulder to the bitter end for a cause they all believed in. Flash forward 50 years. There is no doubt that the events being planned now for 2026, with the support of this town board and all related agencies, will set the standard for the celebration of future generations that will plan the tricentennial celebration. To give more historic context, preview our planned events, and to introduce the major players that have joined forces with the Pines Bridge Committee, is with great honor I introduce our leader, friend, and retired Yorktown police officer, Michael Kahn. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Just to introduce a few people that are here. There are members of Revolutionary Westchester 250, the original Pines Bridge Monument Committee, and those that are continuing to work on the monument, on preserving the history around the monument. I want to introduce behind me Dwayne Jackson, our resident First Rhode Island. Dwayne was there on opening day, we'll call it, when we unveiled, and has done multiple events since then. Joe Ryan, retired social studies teacher. Living History Education.
Living History Education Foundation.
Okay.
Can I interrupt for a minute, Mike?
What?
Here's the deal.
Yeah.
You got to speak into the microphone.
All right, first of all,
Washington speech.
in 1969, a fresh minted teacher out of Plattsburgh State came here, and a student asked him, "Hey, Mr. Ryan, were our ancestors stupid?" And he showed me a picture of the Revolutionary War battle. Blue guys lined up here, red guys lined up there, blowing the you-know-what of each other. He said, "You know, Mr. Ryan, I'd dig a hole."
And I.
So, if you want to see if our ancestors were stupid, ask me later. Because the reason I'm still wearing this uniform 55 years later is that very question. Were our ancestors stupid?
Oh.
Nice tease.
Thank you.
Now we have to stay.
Yeah, so good sales pitch. I love that. So,
I didn't approve it with you, Mike, but I figured you'd go along with it.
Paul Martin, you all know, former town supervisor Linda Cooper. And John Tegeter, and of course Robin
Yes.
Steinberg. From RW 250, we have Chairwoman Connie Kehoe, Mark Cheshire, and Niles Jaeger. So one person who could not make it here tonight who is helping us with this is the village historian from Ossining, Joyce Shara Cole. I just want to play the message she recorded today just because I think it says everything.
Good evening, Supervisor and Council members. My name is Joyce Sherrock Cole. I am the Ossining Village Historian and Advisory Committee member of RW 250. Please accept my apologies for not appearing before you in person. However, I did have a prior commitment. First, thank you for having the foresight to adopt a resolution and committing your community to celebrating the 250th of the Revolution. I have shared your town's resolution with the Village of Ossining and hope to adopt a similar resolution and follow your lead. For a moment, I'd just like to emphasize the importance of the Battle of Pines Bridge 250th commemoration being planned for 2026. This event holds great significance for our community and our history. Our history books did not cover the story of the battle, especially the 1st Rhode Island Regiment. We did not know, growing up, that there was a black regiment that fought in the Revolutionary War, nor did we know of their brave sacrifice right here in our county, specifically Yorktown. As a person of color, it is inspiring, to say the least, to see that Yorktown not only made efforts to share this history, but also had a monument erected in its honor. Sharing this mostly untold history is not only essential, but necessary. It is needed to help dismantle stereotypes and acknowledge the significant contributions of Black soldiers in the formation of the country. Allowing this event is an acknowledgement of the whole narrative of the American story. at least our small slice here in the county. 2026 is going to be a year of reflection and celebration. Yorktown has a unique opportunity to share a primarily untold part of our history that happened right in your backyard. If approved, I believe this event will not only be well attended, but also foster a sense of community engagement and unity, resonating with communities all over Westchester and beyond. I am deeply grateful for your attention to this matter and for your consideration of this proposal. I understand the importance of your time and the weight of your decisions. Thank you for allowing this message to be played. Have a fantastic night.
So I know Connie would like to talk a little bit about a virtual tour at the end. Connie Kehoe and the group have done, actually, want to do it now? Come right up. All right,
Well,
throw me out of the way.
It's great to be here. Nice to meet you all. And I've been so pleased to have this ongoing relationship with Michael and his long efforts at drawing attention to this particular sacrifice by this regiment that happened right here. So in my role, and of course some of my team is here, we have been following along and thinking, how can the county and frankly the state, I've been honored to be appointed to a state commission for the 250 as well. So we've been doing what we can by putting this monument on the map, so to speak, and talking it up. I'm going to leave with you something that if you do a QR code on the back of this flyer, you'll be able to hear an audio tour. We had to pick several places across Westchester to highlight in this tour. And your monument is one of 11 sites. So you can listen to a narrator talk about it. And when you drive, it's a free app, it starts telling you. So I'll leave those here. That's not the main point. But the main point is that you have a local committee who has been working so hard, making connections to Joyce and Ossining, myself. So we just want to support what they're doing in various ways, and they know we're here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie.
So I'm just gonna, you've heard this history lesson probably several times, mainly for me, so one more time, but we'll keep it short and sweet because I know you got a lot tonight, and if my living history guys here want to say something. So this was known as a particularly brutal battle. The Davenport House, which is located in Yorktown, was a command post throughout the war. This battle or skirmish, depending on how you define it, was completely between all native-born Americans, Patriot side, Loyalist side, or Whig and Tory, depending what term you want to go with. No British regulars, no Hessians, and this is what also made it a civil war in addition to a world war. The end of the battle, because it was a surprise attack, and it's quite possible the other side had great intelligence work to find out where Greene was and where the guards were guarding the Croton River. Were able to make a successful attack, 11 dead, including Colonel Greene and Major Ebenezer Flagg, who were buried at the First Presbyterian Church. And the soldiers that were at the site probably were dumped in a mass grave, because that was the common thing for the common soldier back then. You didn't have money, you weren't an officer, common pit. So all of Westchester County was pretty much a no man's land, or the neutral zone, neutral ground, depending on how, different terms, they're all interchangeable. The analogy I keep using, or I'm going to keep going to, is if you remember the Kurt Russell movie Escape from New York, just kind of like that, but it's not New York City and it's not all criminals on an island. But during the war, after the Battle of White Plains, Westchester became pretty much ungovernable. A lot of people left the county. So they had the American Army coming up this way, guarding and watching the Pines Bridge crossing, because that was a natural barrier protecting anybody coming up from the British Army or any enemy sides up to the Patriot lines. The British were down in Morrisania in the Bronx at the time, which was also back then a part of Westchester County. Originally, the regiment started out as integrated. In 1778, there was the Slave Enlistment Act, at which time they were trying to recruit to fill the numbers. They were compensating the enslavers, and the soldiers that were given their freedom were supposed to serve for the remainder, basically, of the war. So they segregated, put all the black soldiers into the 1st Rhode Island. They took all the white soldiers out of the 1st Rhode Island, put them into the 2nd. That was in 1778. Fast forward 1781, troop shortage again. They combined the two regiments into one, and it's just known as the Rhode Island Regiment. And they would go on and continue after what happened here. Those that survived would go on to fight in, the other Yorktown in Virginia. As you can see in the beginning, going way back, there were 3 regiments. That was in the beginning of the war. Flash forward a year. This isn't going to be a short war. It ends up going on 8 years of combat, so troop numbers keep getting diminished. I believe the 5th New York started as 5 and ended up getting combined into 2 in 1780. Yep. So, but the Rhode Island Regiment, the 1st Rhode Island or the Black Regiment of Memory is pretty much, enshrined here for what happened and the amount of black soldiers that got killed versus the white in that battle. So this is one of our visiting historians, Dr. Shirley Green, who just wrote a book. I've just published a book earlier this year, Revolutionary Blacks. She is descended from 2 brothers in the regiment. And that's the Davenport House in the background, which has state, local, and county recognition. So we gave her a little tour that day. She was one of 2 visiting historians that have come here so far. There's a picture of one side of the monument.
It is beautiful.
Well, the other visiting historian, Christian McBurney, who was written, I believe, 10 books, 7 on the Revolution, and I believe he's working on yeah, it looks familiar. That handsome gentleman, yeah. He came here and was just amazed, and I think the exact wording was, "It's the most beautiful monument he's ever seen." I didn't pay him to say that; he said it. But he is working, I think, on a book now about the years that the Rhode Island was segregated. There's Dr. Green on the left, and there is Christian McBurney on the right, and Miss Connie there. Yeah. We have.
It's a good scarf, Connie.
Yeah. We have had multiple inquiries, people reaching out, getting in touch with me and others. They're like, we need a monument up here in Rhode Island. They're the Rhode Island Regiment, and I've told them, do your own thing. You have my blessing. Do not copy what we did because it's unique to here. So what we're hoping for with a focus on the Rhode Island Regiment is for in the 250, rolling with the momentum, every town and village is going to be having something. Let Yorktown have something that has a real, we had a battle skirmish here. Let's honor it. The command post, it was significant enough that it was held for all 8 years during the war. We're working on getting living historians to come and be part of it. 1st Rhode Island, the 2nd Rhode Island, 5th New York would be the hosting regiment. I'm trying to get the Loyalist living historians. There's a couple of them to represent Delancey's brigade. And I have been in touch with some of our, one of our First Nations living historians who has already given me names of others that can represent the different nations, so we can have, just like the monuments representing the vast diversity that we have, the same thing. We could have that in a parade, basically going from the firehouse down to the park and to where the monument is at Railroad Park, There are the two possible parade routes. Will be like a wreath laying ceremony to honor those that died. Obviously, we'd have guest speakers, people who have, published and written possibly. And we're looking to cover different areas of living history, not just the military aspect, but, the arts and crafts, the music, all those kind of things. Those are the two parade routes. Thank you, Robin, for vastly improving on my trying to draw it for freehand. That's what we're looking to do for 2026, and for first weekend of May, give space to the other event that would be going on later, and at the same time, gives people the opportunity to traverse the different events going on throughout the county, and hopefully get to learn each town's history depending on where their interests are. But home team advantage. Here we are. Let's make the most of it. So roughly, this is possibly what we're looking at. Just estimates. Looking at what other towns have done, knowing what these kind of events cost. And between the two committees we have here, the two groups of people, I should say, working together, we should be able to hammer this out. And the supports that we're going to be, hoping to get to make this happen and make this an event worth remembering. So all the different groups. Activity, all those interacting to make this event possible, at the local, state, larger level, all working together to make this happen and supporting one another, especially to improve, heritage tourism, bring them here. Don't go to Yorktown, Virginia, come here, come to Yorktown, New York. We had stuff happen here too.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm gonna invite you up in a minute. Okay.
Michael, great job so far.
What's the next one? Okay. So, yes. Batter up.
What a great opportunity you all have here in Yorktown. Almost a once-in-a-lifetime situation to be able to celebrate the 250th anniversary and to call upon those who died, who lived, who dwelled in your beautiful town. I got involved with it with Paul 17 years ago. He was passing out flyers. He was passing out flyers up at the farm, and I'd never heard the story. I'd never, in my wildest dream, thought that I would get involved in it. But on that particular day, I did, and I've been lockstep with he and Joe ever since that time. So let us not pass up this opportunity. Let us all roll up our sleeves and make this the best 250th that the 250th have ever seen. Thank you so much.
Ronnie, thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. So sweet.
Frederick Douglass? Maybe better looking. I don't know.
All right.
That's everybody.
Okay, so
Yeah.
by the way, you do have someone in your midst who may be able to do a really nice challenge coin for part of the. I see you have the souvenirs in there before. He did one for the American Legion post, which came out really nice with the Pines Bridge Monument on it.
Yes, there is.
So, look, I think it's great. We really want to be there, and I could tell you, I was at the tall ships coming in for the bicentennial. It was 2 months shy of my 11th birthday, and all these but all these years passed, I still remember it clear as day. Especially realizing how crazy my mother was to take 3 boys down for that with myself and my 2 brothers. But it was a phenomenal experience that's still with me to this day. I think that I even have some of the old photos around down in my basement. But I'm hoping that the 250th is just as memorable to those our youth here and anyone who comes up to it, because you know what, that's where you gain that passion, as you said, Ronnie. That's where I gained my first passion of history, and realized that, hey, you know what, there's something so great here to learn about it. And you pointed out as well that you know, we don't realize some of the history. We don't, you know, you don't always get the full story. Of course, the victor writes the history regardless, but even there are parts left out. You know, the African Americans that served in the Revolutionary War. You know, I don't know if a lot of people know that. The Civil War, yes, we know about that, but it's great to bring it forward. It's great to share. It's great to enrich, and I thank you guys for jumping on this, and Michael especially. You know, you've really been a champion of Pinesbridge and Revolutionary War history. But I will say that make sure that the Beatles don't sneak in there somewhere. They were not around at that time. I know you're a pretty big Beatle fan. So.
Tim McGraw too, but I know he got keeping after.
Okay.
I particularly liked when he referred to Yorktown, Virginia as like the other Yorktown. that was
I gotta switch it around.
yeah, well, that's all right, but we're talking about the presentation here, so it was much appreciated.
Use all your tools.
So yeah, you know, Ron, please. I know you've been up to my office to keep me posted, and please keep on that. I will share with the board as we narrow things down. You have some great people you're working with Robin and John in the back, who also very tied to the town. So
You're always working miracles, Robin.
yeah, keep pushing, keep moving, and I could say I'm behind you 100%.
100%.
I could say the same thing.
Let us know we can help.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to make it great.
We only become greater when we know where we come from. I really do believe in my practice, which is actually across the street at the Grace Building. I'm a therapist, and I work for somatic work. And one of the things I tell my clients all the time is like, if you look ahead, that's where you'll go. But that doesn't mean that you can't remember where we come from. And then the bowing and the kneeling comes from the gratitude of where we come from, not where we're going. And taking that with you is the only way that you create the roots to only be better for the generations to come. So you have my vote as well.
So, Mr. Ryan, could you do me a favor? Would you just, because you did mention Living History Foundation, and I don't.
History Education Foundation.
Yes, and I don't know if everyone knows what that is and
Sounds like
how it affects in our schools, because I know we do have Chris.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
well.
the bottom line
to
is
speak
you're looking
yeah.
at a 7th grade teacher. And in 1969, that student did ask me that, and that prompted me to develop a living history program where, not for the public, I took 100 students at the Davenport House in full uniform and recreated the battle there. I only had one black student, but you know, we did a pretty good job. What that led was the Governor Pataki coming up with $950,000 and telling me I want living history statewide. We've managed about 1.4 million, had the numbers of teachers we've taught and the hundreds of students, it goes on. But that's just part of the program. And you could go at the website and all that. But the truth is, our ancestors were not stupid.
They were brave.
Yeah, but you know what? It was the technology of death and the mathematics of murder. Linear warfare is the real deal. But I'm not going to go into that now.
Not today.
All right. But by the way, guys, I've been to the 250th Commission meeting with Connie. I really don't think the cavalry's coming. They're going to do the best they can, but this is not the bicentennial, unfortunately. It's going to be up to our communities to make it happen.
Yes.
We can't, and I've already talked to the feds too, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I'm just telling you what you're going to do here is going to count. That's the bottom line. And that's what's going to happen around the state, and I truly do believe that. And thank you for being behind it and putting up with the crazy white-haired old man standing here in a funny uniform, okay? But you're on the side of the angels. Maybe my wings are a little seared, but that's 32 years of teaching 7th grade, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
I just want to give one more shout out. Somebody behind the scenes, I remember working with him on the chamber. And when they were putting together the Pines Bridge Monument, James Tripoli, man, great job. Always there. Thank you.
Thank you all, guys. And Paul, just so you know, the Mets won tonight. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Don't take it off for 4 days.
All right.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
Actually, I had a 7th grade history teacher, Mr. March, down in Yonkers, who set us up to do. We had basically a cabinet meeting, and that was like a 3-day thing where there were officials. We had all the
Cool.
all the positions of the cabinet, and that was our meeting. It was pretty cool, the living history stuff.
Yeah.
We have representatives from AAA. Okay, we have Phil Marino.
Bring him up here, Howie. You can put him right up here.
About a couple of weeks ago, AAA requested to speak to the board. I was informed this afternoon that he wanted to speak to you about recycling, but they rectified everything, and there was no need for them to come to speak to you today.
Great.
So this was the recycling routes.
Recycling routes, he figured something out that's been working. He says, you know what? He says, so far so good, so
So they're going to remain the same.
they're going to remain the same. Okay?
All right.
Thank you for sharing that
Thanks,
with us.
Phil.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we will have a discussion about our CREST grant, which is some grant money that Senator Harcum let us know that we are being awarded in the town. It's $100,000. At the time that this had come through, I was in discussion with the library and with our town clerk about the possibility of electronic signage. The library in particular for their programming, as they have a lot of programming, and also our clerk pointed out that the Capellini Center also has a lot of programming, and since we're on history, we have a great museum there with a lot of Revolutionary War memorabilia, including an old Revolutionary War musket. We have a great curator there now in Amy, and Diana has really done a lot to get the museum to where it's really becoming a true gem. And that was my idea for some of that signage. So I wanted to see what the board had in mind and talk about that.
I mean, I have to say that the Capellini building, or the 6th grade school, or whatever it's known as, has some amazing events in there. Whether it's the teen center, whether it's for the senior centers, whether it's the holidays, whether it's a museum program, it really, a lot of people drive by and don't really know that it actually holds so much value. And I feel like a signage of some sort, especially an electronic signage, can kind of rotate in who you might be honoring or what might be happening there. And I really do believe it'll be an extension to why we have the theater there, and the stage is there. There's it's important. Like, even if it says like teen center around back instead of having just the little sign at the window. I'm not knocking the sign, but I'm just saying the sign at the window. But I feel like that's a great place for it. And as far as the library goes, I want to support Yvonne, because when I go on our library website, I'm a very fast person, I'm almost overwhelmed by how much they're offering. Whether it's like reading with a puppy, or whether it's Mahjong, or whether it's like trading seeds. And I come from an old school Italian family, and my mom believes that you should grow all your vegetables. And they have all these great things. And then also the way that they were able to showcase my son for the month, because there is like art at heart for the little kids, and every kid gets to pick a month that they love, and they'll showcase you. They really do have a great, but I can't keep it straight. So maybe driving by would be a great place as well. So I do agree with those two places.
I agree with you on that one, Luciana. I went over to the library and I did a quick little tour at Yvonne, and it is incredible how much they have to offer over there. Yeah. From the Seed Club to they have, if you go in there with a junior kid, a high school kid, and a parent, there's stuff for all three all three categories.
And how about for the entrepreneurs? Those
Yeah.
pods now, or people can have little meetings
There's
and
that,
like, talk
and
about
the
things?
community centers there. They do physical stuff. They do chair aerobics.
Chair yoga, I love that.
So there's a lot of information that the electronic board would be a big asset for them.
It's important though that we pick, you know, not all boards are alike, and there are certain electronic boards that, you know, they don't have the pixels and all of that. It's like a TV. So, you know, I mean, at this point, the technology has become so much better, and the prices have come down. It's important that we pick something that's going to look really, really good.
Yeah,
You
we
know,
don't
not
want
so
an eyesore.
pixelated. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree
So-
with that.
Well, yeah, and right now, I just want to make sure that we're on board. Look, there are
I'm
other
on
things.
board.
There are other things that did go for it, but I know that they just arranged for a grant for the Grange. There was a grant for the VFW that came through. Also, I think part of the CREST programming, but from Senator Harkam, there's been one from Matt Slater that I believe was going to the Grange. So there've been quite a few things that are working on the cultural stuff in our community, and I think that a large block that we're missing is a way for people to get that information. You know, granted, it's online, and there's some signage out there, but nowhere near enough for the amount of stuff. And I think it's very important to let the taxpayers and our public know these are these programs that are there for you.
No, but even though it's online, we often get people that say, you know, I haven't seen this, or
Yep.
I'm not on Facebook, right? So this would be just another avenue to get the word out especially for those people that are just driving around and maybe they're not, you know, tech savvy, or they don't like tech and they don't use it. So, you know, I think it's a good idea. I'm sorry, Susan.
You know, those sound like good ideas, but I just learned about this grant, I think, last week. So what I would like to suggest is that we kind of ask either both our department heads and ask the community to submit any suggestions, you know, for this before we make any decision. I'm not saying I'm opposed to the electronic board,
Yeah.
but I just think we should at least get possibly more input, because this is the first time I'm hearing about these two things. We also have to think about location, because if the goal is to have the most people see these signs and events, then where should it be? And to your point about the technology, certainly our sign ordinance, which at this point, electronic signs are still illegal in Yorktown, should be updated, and it should be with the current technology.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
I'd like to just,
Well, Susan, I would say that there have been some grants that have gone through the community from people who have reached out, from organizations that have reached out. I find it a little, I'd find it a little distressing to have to say to people in this particular one where you talk to different put it out to the public, hey, that's a great idea, but we don't want it. I think that as people come and talk to us about different projects, and like that's how we knew that the American Legion was trying to do their roof. That's how we knew that the VFW was trying to do their repairs and what they needed. That's how we knew about the Grange. And I think those doors are always open for people to come to the town board and look for avenues of funding. I just, to open it up on a large scale, while it's a great way to get input, we're sort of the elected leaders to pick. And I'm a little worried about the fact that you will get people who will put it in just for the sake of putting it in, because we'd like to get that money for our group. And I belong to a couple of groups that I think would love to get some of those fundings, but it's kicking open a door that I think, as us being the people who are elected to make those decisions, should probably move that focus. And then, as things come on, maybe we could start like a community chat where, hey, these are some different projects people are looking to do. I know the library affects pretty much all of our taxpayers, and the Capellini Center affects pretty much all of our taxpayers. They go through, our seniors go through there, our kids go through there. We have the plays, we have the different meetings. So from a point of view of the outreach of where that'll be effective, it affects a whole lot and doesn't just pigeonhole into one group where we have to make decisions on them.
I think you misunderstood what I was saying. First of all, I wasn't saying that the grants should go to specific groups. Each group, like the Grange veterans, they can make their own pitches for funds. I'm just thinking other town projects that benefit the town. Just as an example, today's Examiner has an article about how Portland is using its crest money for some type of lighting involving solar and wind in its parks. I just kind of glanced at the article. I'm not saying that that's a project, but I'm just saying to reach out to other people, other department heads, before making a decision, give it 2 weeks. And when somebody offers a suggestion, that doesn't mean we're gonna get it. That we're committed to that. We have lots of suggestions, right? When we got the ARPA money, there was a community response, but then the town board, as you say, has the authority and the leadership and makes the decisions. I'm just asking, before I decide between the library and the museum, I'd like to know if there are any more possible projects that would benefit the town. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, look, I'm more than happy if anyone.
I don't know.
If any of our department heads want to send an email to the board and we don't have to decide today, of course, but, I just want to make sure that we affect as many people as possible and that it's, I do like communication because it also will help us with different things because we have to do different MS4 communications about pesticides, and we could actually use those for PSAs as well, which is part of what we need.
I was always hoping when the chamber sign went up many years ago that it was also going to be used for community.
Well,
purposes, and it never has been.
That's not accurate. It has been, and anytime anybody, and we had an agreement with the town that the town would be able to put any kind of public service announcement on there at no charge, and that's always been standing, whether the town has taken advantage of it or not. And the town has, because I was managing the sign for many years, and I put many things up for the town and for other community leaders and for schools and announcing graduations. That's not accurate what you just said. Yeah. But I understand if you feel that it could have been utilized more, that would be a more accurate statement.
It certainly could
Pat,
have been
I think
used
Pat
more.
had something to say.
No, I was just going to say, we came up with this idea with the signs at the library and I call it the 6th grade school because that's how old I am. But we had community engagement, and we did listen to people. This is why we came up with those 2 locations, potentially. And this is nothing etched in stone. It's just an idea. Yeah. That's what the work session's about.
I got to be honest though. The suggestion to put it at the 6th grade school and at the library, to your point, Ed, affects a great many people. It affects all the taxpayers. It's on. It doesn't pick and choose. This side of town or the other side of town, which I always hate when people use terms like that because I think we are one town. But it does apply the funds in an equal manner on the Lakeland side, let's say, and on the Yorktown Central side. I think those are 2 great spots. I think people look at these spots often for for community events, and it would be no better place. So I think the choices are very good, and the suggestion is very good.
But I do think you make a good idea that we should have ideas
in the
from
hopper.
just in the hopper, so that we don't get paralysis by analysis and waiting another 2 months to figure out what's going on with it. So if you have a list, then you can pick and choose from the list and go back and get.
I will say the paralysis by analysis will be waiting for the check because it's a lot easier to get the big check than it is a little check, right, Janelle? I see Janelle smiling back there. Well, it's reimbursable anyway. Yes, thank you. It's reimbursable, and there is a time frame. So we really do need to
Move on it.
Yeah.
All right.
So, all right. Well, if any of the department heads, and we could send out an email tomorrow, have any ideas, any of the community leaders that, if you want to send it. But as I said, I want to make sure it's something that really has widespread effect and doesn't pigeonhole for this. And then, and also it'll help us if we have ideas of what people are looking for. We could always suggest to our elected officials who grant that money.
What we're looking for.
Yeah, hey, this is a project coming up. So, all right. So that is good. And next, Janelle, do you want to come up to the podium? So we're going to have a conversation. We're looking at the budget. For the last 5 years, Yorktown has been flat or even had a reduction in taxes. And we are now looking at the can got kicked down the road quite a bit, and it's time to really start looking at the reality of inflation, of rising labor, rising electric, utilities up across the board, insurance rates going through the roof, both on the liability insurance and the employment insurance. So under New York state law, if you are going to break the tax cap, Janelle will explain a little bit of the process.
Okay, so as we're working through the budget, we start with going to all the department heads saying, how much is it gonna cost to operate the town? We build that number of how much the expense is going to be. Then we look at our revenues, which are non-property tax revenues, fees, building permits, antenna rents, all different kinds of fees that we charge. And the difference between the two, where the shortfall comes through, is how your tax rate comes to the public, so we can balance the budget to pay for all the operating expenses. So in the last 5 years, like the supervisor has said, is that we were lucky because the state had upped the sales tax rate, so we had a good amount of sales tax revenue that, because of the costs of all the expenses that exceed what the revenues are coming in, is we were able to kind of hold the line and not have to increase the tax rate. But unfortunately now, because inflation is so high, and like the supervisor said, the costs that are coming in, the supplies, the contractual obligations that we have, the health insurance, just the general liability insurance in the last 5 years has literally doubled. As we're looking at the budget now, we're at the point that we can't. Then also, when you look at the budget with the state, is that they have a formula for the tax cap where all your funds, they'll tell you, okay, you can raise your budget by X amount. And because all of the funds, right now we have, the expenses that have increased, but on top of that, we're also looking at adding a fly car for services for the residents, the water rates from that we buy our water from, which is not in our control. The costs there have gone up significantly. So what they tell us, X amount is where you can raise the tax cap, is we are far exceeding that now, and we can't offset it with the revenues that we're charging for non-property tax. So we're at the point now that we have to break the tax cap. So now we have to ask the board to approve to go for a local law so we can break the tax cap, and then we'll have a public hearing. So the public, once we pass the budget, we submit the budget at the end of the month, you'll be able to see all the numbers that we come up with. And then you'll be able to come and speak about it and let the board know your thoughts.
So I will say that there were mitigating circumstances coming through 2020 with COVID of us not knowing where things were going. So the town board was very reluctant to raise the tax revenue that we were getting. There have been people that have been opposed to us not raising, and rightfully so, because every year you're entitled to what would be a 2% increase, although is there an additional 1.5% if you haven't raised it
No.
that carries over? No? I thought that-
There's a whole formula. I mean, it's, yeah, it's
Yeah.
complicated. You can't even just say it's 2%. You put all the information in, and then based on what your budget was last year and a whole formula, then they'll let you know, okay, this year you can raise it by X amount.
Okay.
And it's the tax, yeah, it's a tax levy. You can raise it,
So
X
what
amount.
what are the repercussions of? I know that in years past, if you broke the tax cap, there were repercussions for that.
Yeah, correct. Well,
where are we with that
yeah,
now?
the residents used to get back that rebate check if all the municipalities stayed within the 2%, but now there's no.
There's no
no
rebate checks
repercussion,
anymore,
yeah, no
right? So
rebate
there's
checks.
really
And other municipalities, if you look in the papers,
they're going to.
everyone else is in the same situation that we are.
all right, but I just want
Yeah.
to focus. Like there used to be rebate
Used to be.
checks.
Mhm.
Now those, if you didn't break the tax cap,
Right.
now those rebate checks don't exist anymore.
No.
So I mean, breaking the tax cap, of course, it means what it means, but there were no repercussions for it.
Correct.
And could you explain how the difference between the tax cap and tax rates, and how one really doesn't have anything to do with the other because of the multiple taxes within?
Well, right. So when we create the budget, there's multiple funds in the town. So there's the town tax, which is encompassed of it's called the AD&L, which is the general fund, the highway, and the library. So that's your town tax. And then besides that, there is the park districts, there's all the sewer funds, there's multiple sewer funds. There's there's 2 water funds, there's the emergency ALS fund, and the refuse and recycling fund. And all the other funds, AD&L, everybody in the town pays that same exact tax. That's your town tax. All the other taxes depend upon where you live and what service you have. Do you have town water? The garbage, depends which water district you live in. If you live in a park district, will depend whether or not you have the park tax. And then when you calculate the tax cap, that's based on every single fund. So they might say, okay, this year you can raise it $1 million. And if we added just the fly car this year, and they want to charge us, say, just for example, it's $500,000, and they tell you can only raise all of your funds $1 million, right there, you're at $500,000, and all the other funds, if you have to give raises and your insurance is going up and your general liability insurance going up and everything's going up, you don't have any room to stay within that tax cap. So that's how that works.
And sometimes when the town has underspent and spent less than the tax cap,
Mhm.
they have done for many years, in effect, that lowers the tax cap for the next year.
Next year.
So by
Right.
supposedly saving taxpayers' money by spending under the tax cap for many, many years, we have actually hurt ourselves going forward.
Right, because then you can't raise as much the next year.
It's a sad
Yeah.
lesson in history.
Yeah.
But people have saved money over those years, and now there's no repercussions for breaking the tax cap anyway.
Yeah, correct.
So
yeah,
it
I
doesn't
mean-
really matter. So
Well-
it worked out.
Well, we don't really want to raise the taxes, but it's
There's no choice.
right.
There's
It's
no choice, unless you want to cut services. I mean,
Right.
That's
the
your only
choice.
other option,
Either
right.
have an increase in taxes, and we don't. I certainly don't know, because as a council person, I'm waiting for the supervisor's budget. But if you don't want to pay the tax, then what service do you want to cut? Do you want to
Right.
cut the police? Do you want to cut paving? Do you want to close the library? Do you want to shut down fewer hours for the parks to be open, or not maintain the parks?
Don't
I
add
mean,
ALS, right?
and
I mean,
don't
yeah,
want
right,
ALS.
right.
It goes on and on and on.
Right.
well, I could tell you that no one wants us to cut the garbage.
Absolutely.
That I could guarantee you.
No kidding.
But you'll have people who say, no, the police are very important,
Mm-hmm.
certainly the resource officers in the school. Everything is important. Everyone wants their road paved, and they want more road paving. You can't have it two ways, and that's the unhappy fact of life.
Yeah.
So the people
Well, that's why
that have
people
to
want to.
decide that.
That's why people want to move to Yorktown because they have those services. You know, now
And
we
I,
just
and I
have
will
to-
say something, though, which is kind of interesting. Because of compounding, we actually can raise the taxes and save money on what would have happened if we did a simple 2% tax increase over the last 5 years. I know you ran that number.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to give out specifics because we're still working with
Right.
the budget, but I mean, we have an idea where we're going to come in at. So like the supervisor said, we kind of just ran a scenario for a homeowner in the town, and the taxes have not risen in 5 years. So if you take what we're projecting that we think we're going to come in at and so this would be year 6. And then if we raised it every year for 2 years back since 2019, even though we're gonna raise your taxes this year, you're still at a better vantage
game.
point than you were as if we did it all along,
Right.
so.
Okay.
And we tried to be responsible as the last 5 years, even though costs were going up. If we still had money to subsidize, which we did in some of the revenue lines, we did that because that's what was at the time best for the taxpayers. But now it's come to the point that
It's
we
not
don't have,
sustainable.
it's not sustainable. So that's the point
And,
that
and
we're
I
at.
think, actually, I think we had this conversation last year with Tom, who
Yes.
knew it, and I know I've been saying it since day one. It's an unfortunate reality, but knowing what was happening inflationary and all of our expenses and following through that, it's it is a state of state of
where
our
it's- where it's
state
at
of the
right now.
state, or the state of the
Mm-hmm.
town.
Nobody knew what. I mean, it's if you harken back to the days of like we were like at the start of the pandemic, and then halfway through the pandemic, you had no idea what was going on. The world was ending. Everybody was, it's easy to look back now, just like any kind of history. You look back now in the eyes of today, modern day, 2024, and you could say, well, this and that, but I remember being in the pandemic and driving up to Bear Mountain. There wasn't a car on the road. I was like, what?
It is easy to
It's
be an
crazy.
armchair quarterback.
I was still working.
But I'll give a shout out to Ed Safone, because he was one of the opponents of not raising it. He was a proponent for raising it all along from Taxpayers United. But the nice thing is, in the long run, it does save. We are in a better spot than we would have been by raising every year.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Janelle.
thanks.
All right. I'd like to reconvene our public hearing for 800 East Main, Yorktown Development AMS LLC petition for.
Can we refer that local law out, please?
Oh, do we? Is it in here later or no?
The law itself is not.
Okay.
I resend that to everybody tomorrow.
So, all right, so before we start with you, Mr. Weingarten, can I have a motion to refer out the override tax levy law?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so Adam, if we could get that law?
Yeah, we have.
Oh, you have, you have it, okay, fantastic,
We just
great.
have to have the refer out to the appropriate parties.
Is that going to be part of the December public hearing on the budget, or is
See
it
what I
separate?
said?
No, it has to be done before that, so my guess would be 11/19/24 would be the best time to have it.
All right, let's, so public hearing, motion for public hearing on 11/19?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, as long as we're talking about public hearing, are we going to do the motion later in the meeting about scheduling the October?
Yes, it's in the agenda. All right, so we're going to reconvene the public hearing for 800 East Main, Yorktown Development AMS LLC, petition for amendments to the zoning code of an amendment to the zoning map from OB Research Laboratory and Office District to RSP2 Senior Citizen District.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. Your meetings are very interesting. I have to tell you, I go all around the county and these are, learned a little
I'm just
history
grateful she's
today.
back
I'm-
tonight.
I'm very impressed.
I see you.
We're an interesting town.
Certainly.
Yeah, the vowel at the end of your name, we'll all be good.
I grew up in an all Italian.
Weingartno.
I grew up in an all Italian neighborhood in Yonkers. I'll talk to you about it sometime.
Were you Crestwood or Dunwoody?
I hear.
No, on Bronx River Road
Okay.
over by School 14. It was a
Sure.
very Italian neighborhood.
I grew up in the Dunwoody section, which is very Italian also.
My name is Mark Weingarten. I'm a partner in the law firm of Del Bello, Denellen, Weingarten, Wise, and Wiedeker, and it's my pleasure to be here this evening representing AMS Acquisitions LLC in connection with this proposal to redevelop the 35.5-acre site located at 800 East Main Street, Yorktown, New York, formerly known as the Contract Registers site. I'm joined tonight by our team that you're familiar with, Ryan Sutherland from AMS, Our AKRF team, you'll hear in a bit from our planner, Peter Farreau, and our traffic consultant, Michael Beatty. As you're all aware, and we've already had a hearing, our proposed action for this 35-acre site consists of demolishing a 63,000 square foot vacant office buildings and replacing them with approximately 250 luxury multifamily residences restricted to owners 55 years of age and older, approximately 200 rental units, and 50 for-sale townhomes. That's our proposed action. However, as we discussed at our prior hearing, there appears to be a preferred alternative which reduces the number of residences to 185 units and restricting them to rental units. So there would be 185 rental units and none of those being for sale. But again, restricted to 55 and older. We continue to try to improve our project as we go through this hearing process, and we will fully develop the alternative plan in the final environmental impact statement, and I'll go through that procedure in a moment. Either way, we seek to create a beautiful new neighborhood with plenty of open space and luxury amenities included. Currently, the site is zoned OB Research Lab and Zoning District, and we are seeking to rezone the property to RSP2 so we can build the senior neighborhood. In order to accomplish our project, we have put forth a petition to your board to rezone the site to RSP2 Senior Citizens District to facilitate our vision for creating this new beautiful community. And as I said, what is now our preferred alternative only requires one change to the zoning. That has to do with the height. It's currently in the RSP2, 45 feet, and we're seeking to increase it 10 feet to 55 feet. This small requested change to the height is limited to tracts as large as this one, more than 25 acres or more. During our prior presentation on September 3rd, we walked through our visual impact analysis, which is contained in the DEIS, and showed why we believe the change of height will have very limited impact from the various viewpoints from around the town that you asked us to analyze. As I mentioned, this is our second hearing. We presented the plan and had a lengthy and very late discussion before you on September 3rd. We were asked to concentrate tonight for our presentation to be about the traffic, which was the subject of many of the questions. As a reminder, this process, we are now before you on the zoning petition. You have accepted our DEIS is complete. We are now in the public hearing stage. We have a stenographer here that will take down all of the words, questions, and comments that come both at the last hearing and this hearing. And it will be our job at the conclusion of the hearing to answer every one of those questions and comments in writing in a final environmental impact statement. So that's where we're getting to. And then, if we are successful, and it comes back to the town board when that's done, the town will adopt findings, but that's still not the last stage. That only puts the zoning in place, and then we will be before your boards for a site plan approval, going over the very specifics of exactly what the buildings will look like, how big they will be, how tall they would be. This is the maximum envelope in the zoning we're talking about, but then we would get to the specifics in the site plan approval process. Moreover, for those of you who were not here the last time, as I mentioned, if we are successful in obtaining the zoning, there's a long process ahead of us. So we will continue to work together. We think we are already improving this as we've been talking to the residents and meeting with the residents and speaking with the board, and we hope to continue that. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Peter Farreau and Michael Beatty. They're going to take you through the traffic analysis, which we know is the subject of much of the focus of the people in the neighborhood, and explain to you not only what we believe the current status is, what the issues that you're dealing with that you already know that are there, and then again, what our suggestions are for how we might be able to help mitigate those impacts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Peter Farreau with AKRF. We heard obviously at the prior hearing and before, obviously a lot of concerns about the traffic, especially at East Main Street and Route 6. So what we wanted to do is go into a little bit more detail about the study that was performed, and also be able to show you a traffic simulation that was done to show kind of compare the current conditions to what we think a future proposed condition with those two traffic lights there would look like and how it could work. So I'm joined by Michael Beatty, who heads up AKRF's Traffic and Transportation Department, who's the author of the traffic study and the simulation. And so we're just going to go into a little more detail on just that topic, and then obviously want to hear your comments and answer questions and the comments of the public as well. So I'll turn it over to Mike.
Good evening. I think it's my first time in front of you. Mike Beatty, Senior Vice President at AKRF. About 20 years of traffic planning, traffic engineer experience, professional engineer in Newark, and a certified professional traffic operations engineer. As Peter said, we're going to focus tonight on that US Route 6 East Main Street intersection. We're going to go through what is experienced today, what's experienced, what we anticipate in the future without the project, and then show what we anticipate the intersection will look like with the project with these improvements. So first, intersection itself, we know today there's a lot of operational safety issues. If you go out there, there is no control except for the side street stops. We did look at crash history based on what the state DOT has. Over the past 3 years, there's been 9 crashes, and those are just reported crashes. Anything that's not reported or anecdotal near misses, they don't make it into the study, but at least there's been 9 reported. If you think about this road altogether, as vehicles try to enter the road, there's 5 lanes of traffic traveling at 45 miles per hour, not really the type of roadway you want to try to take a left onto. But what's really going on here is this intersection is absorbing a lot of the regional traffic cutting through to get to MyPEC and like further north. So we're going to show you what those volumes are, just give a sense of what's going on there today. In the morning, so this is your AM peak, you'll notice at the intersection, just to give everyone some orientation, here is Hill Boulevard and East Main, Lee Boulevard, and then here's where East Main comes in and meets Route 6. Today, there's close to 500 vehicles taking that right turn. If you look at the traffic upstream, you could tell that a lot of that traffic is coming from further towards MyPEC. So what we're talking about here, this is really a cut-through route. As opposed to using Hill Boulevard that has a signal or Lee Boulevard to have a signal, what vehicles are opting to do is to go to the unsignalized intersection and take the right turn out. What happens then is really you're waiting for gaps in traffic caused by Lee Boulevard to make your exit, but a lot of times this queue today can spill back to Indian Hill Road. In the PM, it's like that reverse commute. Over 500 cars at that location is taking that left to then travel along East Main, and if you just track the volumes, you see it's not local traffic, it's everyone traveling through. They're opting to, instead of going to a signal at Lee Boulevard or a signal at Hill Boulevard, they're opting to get off US Route 6 early, and if you travel along East Main Street, there is no control here. Nothing stops you, there's no signals, it really is a straight shot. And so what happens then is not only does this, in our terms, fail, it's an unacceptable condition, sometimes these queues, so the number of vehicles lined up, will back up towards the Taconic. And the problem is there's a short pocket there. When they back up to the through lane, people are now trying to change lanes to get around that queue. So today, not a great situation. So what we want to do is when we do these traffic analyses, is the first thing we do is we want to establish a future no-build condition. What we do there is we take the volumes that you see here, we grow them by a certain % per year, and then any sort of approved projects in the area will discretely add those trips on top of it. So what we're going to show you is a simulation of that future no-build condition. Before it plays, just a little bit about this model. This is a traffic simulation model. It's called VISM. It is an approved software by state DOT. They use it on projects. It produces level of service, delays, kind of what you typically would see. The great thing about this model is that then it could actually show what that looks like. So opposed to me saying, this is a level service C to level service D, what does that mean? You actually be able to see what this looks like. When we run the simulation, you'll see 2 types of colored cars. There's a purple car. Those are the existing volumes that you guys saw on that previous map, grown 3 years. And any car that's orange are cars that are associated with other planned developments in the area. So I'm gonna start playing this. This is the PM peak hour. And it will zoom in for you soon. So it might be hard to see it to start with, but again, just for orientation, here's Taconic northbound off-ramp, here's East Main Street, and here's Lee Boulevard. And the things I'll point out is you'll notice the queue here, so see this left turn queue, and it will zoom in, is extending back past that left turn pocket towards the Conic. So whatever you guys are experiencing today, we just anticipate it's going to get slightly worse with the growth. You'll notice that vehicles, when it zooms in, especially if you're coming out from the park and ride or trying to enter into US Route 6, they're trying to manage and find a gap of 5 lanes of traffic, again, traveling at 45 miles per hour. And this queue will continue to extend to the Conic, and the only time they get to go is when Lee Boulevard stops traffic and they find that gap. So you'll see here the queue of cars. When Lee Boulevard does have a red light, you'll see some cars be able to be processed. But in the future, based on the future volumes, you see vehicles that would have to then get out of the travel lane to go to the other lane. That's what causes accidents. And this will back up to the Taconic. Again, you'll see cars trying to navigate a gap to find, get through the 5 lanes of traffic. And again, this is without the project. This is just what you see there today with some growth. And there's one of our no-build projects, that orange car. And you can see where the queues are heading. And it will just zoom out for a second. And again, this represents the PM peak hour. We do these models for an hour, just for size of file. We pick a 5-minute period. So this was represented there. And you also see the cars backing up along East Main Streets. Again, you see that queue of cars past the queue, past the storage length, blocking traffic. So that's our no-build condition. That's what we want to compare our project to. When I then look at the project, what I do is I take these volumes you see and I add our anticipated volumes on top of it. So actually, while you see right here, you can see the queue of cars as it backed up, backing towards the Taconic, and you can see the queue. So it's not processing the vehicles. When we talk about with project, when I look at the with project, I take those volumes you just saw and I add what we're projecting our project will generate. So what we've done here is we put it together tables to give you guys a sense of volumes at the Route 6 East Main intersection. Just to walk you through what you're seeing, I'll just go focus on the PM peak hour. Today, in our PM peak hour, there's almost 3,500 vehicles traveling through the intersection. Just if you did nothing, no approved projects, you anticipate to add another 100 vehicles. If you add the projects that are approved or being planned for this area, not our project, but other projects, it's another 243 trips. And then for the 250 residential units, that's what we studied in the report, another 122 total trips going through this intersection. And when I say total trips, when we talk about the eastbound left, there's actually 63 project trips in the eastbound left. The 122 represents any of the movements to the intersection. So the project is only adding about 3% to the total traffic in this area. That being said, I think it's recognized that it's a problem. Our trips are going to go through this intersection. So the project team wants to take on, how do we resolve this? It's not just resolving for our 63 trips taking that left, but today, 3,500 trips are going through this intersection that really isn't set up properly. So we went through a couple different options. One option was we looked at, what if we created a whole new access point? The map you see here is the Taconic northbound off-ramp. We looked at, what if we were to punch through to East Main Street, completely avoid the intersection? The problems here is you'll see some images, you'll see some images of if you went straight through or if you tried to do kind of like a switchback. The grades are so steep today, the amount of blasting you have to go through to get those grades to acceptable would be pretty extensive. You could have operational impacts at the Taconic off-ramp because now you're adding another lane to that, which you have to then accommodate. Obviously, you have to go through state DOT to actually get this new lane across from the ramps.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
There's that. But also, let's just say somehow we were able to do this. It doesn't solve the issue that occurs today because there's still 3,500 trips going to the intersection. So we're at this point right now, we're saying this is a feasible option. It is in the report. We did show it to DOT, but you could see just based on the grading, it's a tough solution.
Mm-hmm.
We next looked at a roundabout. Personally, as a traffic engineer, I do love roundabouts. They're safe. They process vehicles. However, in this case, Route 6, you have 4 lanes. It's a high-speed roadway. You do have large trucks. Just to give you a sense, you would need a roundabout that's close to 180 to 230 feet for people to navigate. I didn't center the roundabout exactly in the middle because obviously you could see where you're limited by this park and ride.
Uh-huh.
So this is just the size of the circle, let alone how you approach the circle, the way you have to navigate the road. It's, again, as someone who likes roundabouts, it's a difficult location to put a roundabout given the size you need and your constraints both north and south. So again, another one where—
And that also has to do with the width of the existing road.
It's the width, the number of
It's
vehicles.
like if you go up by LaGrange, they have them all over, but the widths are so much smaller.
That's what it is. And the type of vehicles that are traveling through here, we did notice some big trucks.
Yeah, they're bigger trucks, yeah.
You have to accommodate that turning. So you end up, again, someone like roundabouts, it's a large roundabout. And you can see the amount of space.
Keep going.
The blue is the 180 feet, the yellow is 230 feet, and it doesn't account for any of the approach lanes. So it's more extensive than just
Yeah,
the
because
surface
there's
scene.
turn off lanes as well.
So again, another option we looked at, but we dismissed just based on the size. So the solution we came up with was actually creating a signal system here. There would be two signals, one at Route 6 and one really where it meets East Main right here. These signals would actually operate as one controller. It's called a clustered intersection, which means it's different than where you see a lot of signals along a corridor that talk to each other. These operate as one signal. So it's not talking, they actually know they work as one unit.
Meaning they're automatically in sync.
They're automatically in sync.
Okay,
there's
that's
no,
really
there's no like, we call offsets, there's no talking.
Yeah, there's no like talking now you go.
It's
to
a controller that controls this as, it's called a cluster intersection. They view it as one signal,
Okay.
not multiple signals. The nice things about this.
But the light on 6 would be talking to the light on Lee Boulevard at that intersection.
Eventually, so the idea would be, and we'll show you a simulation, these two work as one, and then you would coordinate them with Lee and the
You'd have to.
Taconic. And there's even more stuff you could do beyond that. Like, while we would be funding this like $1 million bill to build this the two signals, there are other improvements that can be done on the corridor. I'm not sure if you're familiar with in Cortland, they did this adaptive traffic control system by Cortland Crossing. That's something that could be implemented for low cost in the future when it's analyzed as something that makes the signal even smarter. But at least the signal system and the equipment is there, and you could tie it in to actually make a corridor that flows nicely. What you would have here then is you would actually have a left turn that's protected. So you're not waiting for the gap in traffic. So you get a left turn green arrow, and when you can't go, you get a red arrow. There is no, I'll wait for a gap. So you would actually stop or get the green arrow. As a side street approach, you'd actually have stop traffic so you could get out of the side street going north or south. You'll see, just for context, we are extending this pocket past where it is today.
Michael, how many cars can queue up in that now?
You'll see the simulation of now.
Now there's 5 or 6.
It's
right?
5 or 6 before it starts backing up, and they kind of use some of it. I think this will
What's
extend
the
it
new
by
one?
twice the amount. So
Okay,
you're
so
probably looking
you'll
at
get 12 to 15.
Depending on where people start coming back. And so you'll see in the simulation, it might be hard to see on the screen now. You can see where we're pulling it back compared to today. You kind of stop right here, and now you can pull it back further. What a
So
signal
you're
does.
narrowing
the median.
the center island or whatever
Yeah,
you want to call
that's
it.
exactly what you're doing. We're eating into that to create this longer pocket. Because we are now going to stop traffic with that red arrow. So we want to make sure you have the proper storage for that.
Also make it easier for cars that are traveling straight to go around you.
Absolutely,
Correct.
yeah. It just gets them out of that travel way. What's nice about this is we like platoons in traffic. By platoons is you have a set of vehicles at a light, they move as a unit. Today, when Lee Boulevard gets the green, because the next signal is so far away to the Taconic, you get an accordion. So now when they arrive at the Taconic and they get that green light, they're not as efficient because some of the stragglers from behind may not get there in time. So what we're doing is we're platooning it because we create this signal in between the two signals that exist today. Your cues, and we have the simulation in a second, do not back up to the Taconic under this situation. In terms of level service, you want that technical term. Everything operates acceptably under this situation. So today, while you have failures and movements, everything operates at an acceptable level of service. And the other thing this might potentially do, and we didn't account for this in the model, is today people are using this as cut through because they're avoiding signals. they now have a signal where they may get a red light. You may start reducing some of that cut through to actually go to Lee or to go to Hill and stay along Route 6, which they really should do. We still assume the full amount of traffic's taking that left, but it could be a nice byproduct of this that you're reducing cut through for regional traffic.
Quick question, Michael.
Yeah.
I thank some members of the team met me up on the site and we looked at some traffic. I think they've met some of the other council people up there as well. But we discussed maybe adding three-way stops on like Hill and on Lee.
Yep.
Would that also, do you think that would be a good deterrent?
Potentially. Personally, we don't like to use stop signs as a traffic calming measure. The reason why we don't like using stop signs is because if a stop sign isn't warranted, you become numb to it, and eventually when you should stop and you don't, there's accidents. So we would look at warrants, but it's something, it's a tool in the toolbox if it warrants it, and there could be other things you could do to slow down that traffic. So there are options there. I don't like saying a stop sign is used to control cut through or slow down trips, but if it's warranted.
Well, I worry about the safety at those intersections in particular.
Absolutely. And so there's warrants for that, which you could look at, and that would help because again, today, once you take that left, there's nothing stopping you as you go east. It's just straight away.
People blow down that street all the time.
Absolutely. So I'm going to show now the simulation that you saw earlier. The third color vehicle you're going to see now are green cars. Those are just the project trips. There's not a lot of them because, again, compared to the purple trips, but you'll see the green color, and you'll see this, again, same time period. It's going to do the same kind of camera flow, but you'll immediately notice before we even start, that queue you saw earlier is not there. A queue does form when you wait. It does clear. You see now the new queue you'll see is when vehicles traveling westbound stop at Lee. So that's a new delay or a new place some people have to wait where normally they would just go through. But in the future, as you create this better adaptive system, we like having the control of having those platoons. So I'm going to hit play. One other color you'll see, just because we always highlight it, a blue, you'll see it's a truck. Just it's a larger vehicle. So if you see a blue vehicle, it's a truck.
Got a lot of wheels?
It's got a lot of wheels. I mean, it looks like a truck. So again, this is a model where
The blue truck.
The blue truck's there. This is what reminded me of it. Again, I input the information. I can't make this look
different.
Better. This is not Pixar where I could say you do this. There's a modeling behind it. I put the inputs, and I'm kind of hands off. So if it's working better, it's showing that it's working better. So you can see the queue that you saw before is not there. A queue does form, but again, it dissipates. And zooming in soon, you'll see that also now those side street vehicles that want to come out, they actually have a green light. You see the light green car that shows, again, we do have our project vehicles coming to the site.
So, Michael, when you say that, just to clarify for everybody,
Yeah.
those are cars coming out of your AMS project.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay. I just want to clarify that for everybody.
Yeah,
I know that.
well, in this case, they're going in. You see some coming out.
I
Of
get
the
it.
102 we talked about earlier.
Just for people looking, that's all.
Those are our project trips generated by the 250 units. But you'll see, again, this is the new queue you'll see, which clears. You don't wait through cycles. It does clear.
Can you pause it right there? Because
Yep,
here's my
one second.
concern. So you see the queue. Yeah, you see all that queue. So those people are going to be coming back, right? They're going somewhere now. The assumption is they're going to be coming back. That queue is going to be flipped. It's going to be on this side of the road, and I don't know if you have that. I know for a fact you don't have the same distance between this new light and the Taconic entrance, where there's a light, that you do from this light and the Lee Boulevard light going back down.
It's a good question. This is the PM peak hour. Most of the vehicles, this is the one that's actually traveling in the opposite direction you're talking about. So while you would think, would come back the other way, this is actually the heavy movement right now. So that concern you'd have, it'd be different if this was the morning one I'm showing you it's coming back. This is the PM where this actually is.
So you're saying those people are going home?
They're already going home right now. So that's why we looked at the PM peak hour.
All right,
That's the critical one.
We can look at the PM. So that means that the queue up on the top part of where all those purple cars are now.
Yep.
Right, that's PM.
This is the PM.
So AM, they would be on this side. It's the same problem.
No, because what would happen with, in the AM, they would be on this side, but you change your signal timings to coordinate for the AM. So, for instance, this is the PM peak hour. We want to make sure we give enough time for this left turn, right? Because there's a lot of vehicles there today. So you stop this for a long amount of time, so less vehicles. In the AM, the number of people taking it left is a lot less. You don't need as long of a green light. This opposing movement gets more green time, they filter through. So in the EIS, we've done for the AM, PM Saturday, they all work. We're showing this PM because of that left turn. But again, the signals now are smarter, and this doesn't even account for the fact that when you have the system, you could upgrade it to the adaptive traffic controller, which just improves it even greater. This is just the basic signal, let alone what you could do beyond that through software. So this right here is only this long because of the amount of people taking this left. In the morning, that left doesn't occur, so you don't hold these people as long. That queue doesn't exist. So that's why we showed the PM, because this is like almost the worst case scenario with the number of volumes.
I think what Sergio's saying is those cars are going to be where it says 1312 on down here. They said they're going to be queued up going out.
But they're not, because that's what this is showing.
You could adjust the timing on the light.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, so.
The reason why they're being queued, the reason why they're being queued there is because the lights being adjusted so that people can make the left turn.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sets a platoon.
Yeah, I mean, and from us, we could always get those queue lengths so you could see for those other time periods. But again, I'll play a little further. Again, this all clears.
I do love the software, by the way.
It's a powerful software
Gotta be honest
tool.
with you.
And it also takes it out of the
Never
realm
seen
of level service.
We'll be using this.
You can visually see it. I'll pause it again real quick. I'll try to pause it. Again, remember the queue that was extended all the way back? We're giving that protected left to get him out, get him out, get him out. We stop them. They start queuing up, give them the green term, get them out. And again, it's coordinated where what you don't want is people taking a left and hitting a red light. Yeah. That's why this is one unit where when you get the left, you also get a green light to keep going forward.
You're going.
Michael, in your modeling, do you like what's the furthest queue that like right now it queues up into the left lane.
Yep.
In your modeling, what does it queue up to? Like I've only seen 6 cars. Is that just because
it's operating?
It's operating. It's supposed to be.
It's the same volumes you saw on that previous one with the long queues, plus our project trips. The queues aren't forming because we're giving them a long chunk of dedicated time instead of them waiting for every so often Lee Boulevard clears and they find the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
We're clearing them, even though we do stop them for a period of time. We then have the ability to clear them out real quick. And you can see when we went to the no build, we could always go back. That queue for that no build was going back to the Taconic. Here it's not. And this is slightly higher volumes because this includes our project trips on top of it.
So currently that intersection is what is it rated as?
The movements are F.
F. And after your improvements with the 2 lights,
all
I think it's
approaches
one unit?
are D or better with overall level service C. We as traffic engineers try to achieve level service D. I know it sounds bad, but in our world that's acceptable, the level service D. In this case, the whole intersection operates as C, and just certain movements operate as D. So we would say in state DOT, it's acceptable, especially during a peak hour, that's an acceptable condition. So we like D or better in the traffic world.
Question, with the signal, which obviously has the light to the left turn, what about people exiting the golf course who want to make a left? Would there be an additional?
They get a signal.
Turn for them?
Yep.
And that would be an independent left turn from the other left turn?
Yeah, so if I'll try to go back to where it zooms in. Give me 1 second.
So they're not going to get a left signal, I'm assuming.
That's
No,
true.
they will get a left signal.
So, I mean, in this case right here, because this movement was getting the green, you'll see these bars. If a car was there, they'd also have a green light. So
they're not getting a green arrow. They're just getting a green light.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. It's not a
You can make the
protected left. It's
There's
a
no
green.
one
You
there.
get a green ball.
So you have to stop people on the
You
left.
would get a green light to make the left, but you'd still be stopping the cars coming from Lee.
Yes. Stop from there. The other thing I'll point out is to make this work, we are prohibiting the left turn from East Main to Route 6. Today, there was like 3 vehicles that do it, so it's not really a lot of vehicles doing it. When you can close off that turn, it allows me to run this right with this left concurrently. So that's why we closed it off. Wasn't a lot of vehicles, so.
It really would only affect the people coming down from your project. I mean,
It's-
nobody's
yeah.
gonna come all the way down that street and then make the left to go back.
Maybe someone from Indian Hill, but.
Or somebody lost, right?
But-
Maybe.
but of today's counts, again, it was 3 vehicles. We thought to take that away
Yeah.
to benefit, well, to at least cater to the 500 cars that are there today.
So people coming down from your I'm sorry to cut you
Yep,
off.
yeah, no, go ahead.
So people coming down from your project,
Yep, I'll try to zoom out so you can see it a
Yeah.
little bit easier.
people coming down from your project with that green car with a,
Yep, so our project would be up here,
Yeah.
down the road
uh
to here. They'd meet a signal here to stop them because at this point it's a shared through right turn lane. If you have the green ball or green arrow for this right turn, you want to stop them. So they wait here, and then when this gets a green, this also has a green, and they can continue on the
they
way.
wouldn't be able to go left. So if they wanted to go left, they would have to go.
Stop them from going left. How would you stop them?
This right here is striped and designed to only be a right turn
Striping
movement.
design means nothing to some drivers. I've seen drivers where even the access coming out of, I think, the Lowe's shopping center, where it's absolutely angled to only go right.
Yeah.
I saw somebody go left.
Well, in this case, again, it's for this signal, you only get a green arrow. So it's really illegal to actually take that left with the green arrow. But on top of that, even today, no one's doing it, so we want to anticipate. And if you were coming from the project and you want to go left, you would actually travel up East Main and then go down to Lee or Hill. So, but when the majority of traffic are really going towards the Taconic. But yeah, they would come here. If they want to continue east, they would go up East Main and then either go down Lee or Hill. And then if they're going west, they would take the turn and then have the green light and continue on. Again, stopping traffic from Lee, so you don't wait for Lee, it's platooned.
And I don't think you can program in people who don't obey traffic laws.
No, you can't. Some software you could do some odd things, but you really can't. You anticipate adherence.
Well, yeah.
And we try to design.
And I mean solving the problem with
Yes.
when I say programming it in.
I have some other questions.
There's no what's that? You can put a no left turn sign. Oh yeah,
That's what I was gonna
yeah,
ask.
The
Is
no
there-
left turn sign, the green. Yeah, it's all there's stuff you could signage. There's again instead of a green ball, it's a green arrow. So there is no left. It's showing it's that. There's striping. There's the no left turn signage. So there's a lot of stuff to at least try to enforce
Minimize it.
Someone could do something illegal, but they actually, when that is a green ball, your left turn is going. So they're not going to have a gap to go out anyway. So it benefits them to actually go to the other signal. And again, there is a potential that when you put that signal in there, it doesn't feel like that quick, I'm avoiding the signals. Some of that traffic may actually stop going through East Main, stay on Route 6 where they should.
They'll get sick of it.
They might get sick of it and do that. But if they didn't, this still accommodates that high volume of cut through traffic, like the 500 cars. So that's the Route 6.
Talk about what you calculated in with the background traffic where you had the increase.
Yeah.
What specifically what was added in terms of specific projects, or was it just a general calculation of your
Both.
extra?
So what we do is a background growth based on historical data, and we worked with your staff here. We did a 1% growth per year of just the existing traffic. And then there were 4 projects that we added traffic from, just so I don't get them wrong, it's in here. We added the Rock Shrub Oak Associates, 3000 Navajo Road, 670 East Main Street, and the links at Valley Fields. Some of those had traffic studies, and so we took their traffic study and plugged those volumes in. 2 of them did not have studies, so we generated trips as we typically would. But those are the 4, like those orange cars, those are the 4 projects that generated that. But we did a 1% per year for those existing volumes if nothing was happening.
Which was the
That's-
first one? Rock?
Rochambeau, maybe?
Oh, no.
Rock, am I-
Yeah.
is that what it- yeah.
That's that potential multifamily there.
Uh,
So it was, that's
know what it's called?
the East Main Street on East Main,
600 East Main,
670
670 East Main.
the Valley Fields.
Yep. And then a 1% per year growth rate.
Those are your 4
Yep.
backgrounds, thank you. Are there any DOT requirements in terms of the distance between traffic lights?
There's no specific requirement because of the clustered intersection.
Well,
So
you've got the Taconic, and then you have
Yeah.
this one, then you have Lee, and I'm just,
no, there's no requirement. Sometimes, like, to realize the benefit of platooning, you want to try to have signals within 1,000 feet. Even if you had signals further apart than that, that you get the accordion. So while it's not a detailed requirement, we try to get those very evenly spaced intersections to get that platoon before it starts doing the accordion. So it's not a requirement, you just see benefits if they're spaced properly.
and could you explain, mentioned something about something in Cortland.
Yes.
Could you explain what that is?
If you're familiar with Cortland Crossing, there's a mall, Baker Street, I think was one of the cross streets. So there's a section of Route 6 that was operating extremely poorly today. They went out, and there's signals there today. They implemented the software called ATCS. It's called Adaptive Traffic Control. Adaptive means actually monitor. There's cameras that monitor trips and in real time adjust the signal. As opposed to today, it's very like no matter how many cars, you're going to get 30 seconds of green. It could be one car, it could be 100 cars, 30 seconds. Technology is now being able to adapt to this. So when they implemented the system on Route 6, they saw like a 20% improvement in travel times, reduction in stops, because it now is it's constantly looking at traffic. It also has historical data, and in real time, it's saying, all right, we got to shift some green time to this movement because maybe the shop mall is getting out, and it's constantly evaluating the system. These signals, it's a software upgrade that DOT has been implementing, and at least in this local area, Route 6 in Cortland has it along a 4 or 5 intersection stretch. But you can imagine if you put the signal here, it helps because today, if we were to put this system on the Taconic and at Lee, it's too far away to actually mean anything. These adaptive signals really work as a system. And by putting this in there, you at least set yourself up for that next step of we have a signal in place, the hardware is there, it becomes a software really issue of upgrading it to that point.
So is that the traffic lights at the bottom of the hill over by the Cortland Town Center shop, right?
Past Lexington, and you keep going down and towards there.
Coles, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Where they
so
have like the Greek place. Or
Yeah.
and so we did pre and post monitoring of like we actually could track vehicles, what's going on there. I mean, it's still a congested area, but we see like remarkable improvements.
No, it has. I used to work in the Cortland Town Center
Oh, yeah.
many moons ago, and there were times it would take you 40 minutes to get up the hill. And I actually mentioned it to my wife the other day because we had gone to the ShopRite, and I was like, wow, the traffic is moving, and they just put that big development right there.
And as an AKRF plug, we developed that system. So we're actually, AKRF is actually one of the experts in New York State for the adaptive control. Not saying we're the only ones to do it, but we did that one. So that's why we're familiar with that Route 6, and it's very successful.
Yeah,
DOT has
especially
loved
with the high traffic items that are there. There's
Yeah.
some real tickets.
We did it there. If Woodbury Commons, we just implemented that with their new interchange because it's always fluctuating. Schools there, the peak, and so we did test there, and that's working out well. So again, you would have the hardware in place, the signal poles, et cetera, and really you could go to the cabinet and you could adjust them to create this other software. And we've done it with DOT at a lot of other places beyond Route 6, and they're liking it. They're seeing a lot of success.
So what's the additional cost of the software?
Top of my head, I don't know, but it's relatively minor compared to like
Relatively minor
it's
is
like
not a
10
number.
It's like $5,000 to $10,000 for software versus the signals where the cost is. Each signal you put in could be $350,000 to $500,000, and here we're putting in two. The software, as long as the cabinet can handle it, and the new signal would, and I think the cabinets on the other ones can handle it.
And you need cameras then, right?
Yeah, if you see now, they're new cameras now. If you drive around, there looks like a bell in the middle of an intersection. It's called a Grid Smart. It looks like a bell. 360D cameras.
Yeah.
They've stopped with the loops in the road because when you repave, you cut them. Ruins the loop. So you'll see if you drive around, you see it looks like a bell. That's a camera that helps with preemption for emergency vehicles. You could have that in there. If a fire truck's coming through, they get the green. But it's a way of tracking vehicles. And again, that's part of that 10,000, like that software upgrade. The real cost is the signal itself.
Is it possible to upgrade an older signal? Because we want to look at town line to town line on Route 6, because there are definitely issues.
It all depends on the cabinet. So you would do an inventory, they open up the cabinet, and they could tell you pretty quickly, do you need a whole new cabinet, or can you upgrade it? So you have to go to each signal and see what's been the latest in terms of the signal itself and the cabinet, because you have to have a certain type of cabinet to have it. All new construction has the new cabinet. Some of DOT has been updating their cabinets for this. We'd have to see,
Really?
did they update it?
Who owns
It's not
those
one of the
cabinets? Is
standards.
that
What's
Who
DOT.
owns the cabinet? DOT?
It's DOT signals. I mean, there's some towns that will do themselves and then they have their own system, but DOT likes to control their system. They have a central management system. It's pretty remarkable what it's doing now.
So the lights cost between 350 and 500,000.
A signal, depending on the complexity of it, do you need different foundations, the span of it? So that's why it's a range, and then whatever the cost of the materials at that
Maintenance,
time.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Well, that's maintenance, just like steel
No, what the
increases.
bowls are, yeah, what the metal
Your,
is.
your ballpark on these singles is what? 350 or 500 or 450?
I would say
or?
for this whole system, probably got close to $1 million, given you have to connect these two to act as one, so it's not a standard signal, it's a little more complex. And because of the width of the roadway, you have those longer spans.
Not a simple junction box.
It's not a simple junction box. So that's why, like, we'd have to do service
Plus
design.
the light has a left arrow. It's a four-way light.
I mean, that's why it gets to that $1 million range between the design of it, the purchase of materials, constructing it, MPT plans to construct it. You have to manage traffic during the construction time.
And you
so-
still need DOT approval on all that.
Absolutely. DOT has the study. I don't think we received comments from the study, but they have the study. They're familiar with the system, but this is a state road, so you would need their blessing on it.
If you could do me, I'm sorry, if you could do me a favor, could you share the study on down by Cortland
Crossing?
Crossing?
Yeah.
No build.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what the effects were there.
Yeah, we actually have a nice presentation that lays it out, so we could probably get that to you pretty easily.
That would be great.
Shows that for it. But it's,
If you want to share it through planning,
Yeah.
they'll make sure we get it.
Would it be prudent to
I hope.
put the software in now and just get it all done? So this way, if we wanted to move ahead, we'd have to do the light on Lee and the light at the Taconic.
Not
Is
really.
that what we're talking about, right?
Not really, because DOT would want their system set up. So the software, you kind of put it as a package with everything else together. It doesn't really do anything to put the software in now. All they want is the infrastructure in place.
DOT doesn't work that way.
Right, like, because if there's software there that's somehow running something, it has to be tied to their system, and it would just be standing alone. So as long as your signal's in place that can handle it, when it's time, they come out, they make sure the other cabinets are sufficient, they tie it to their system, and then they manage the system. And so they track us that way. So it's nothing really advanced except for, again, it's the infrastructure they want. And then they just release the software on top of it.
But it's not just software; it's cameras. You got to have that Bell camera.
But the
right?
camera is
expensive.
no. It's relatively
Expensive.
minor compared to.
But it's tied into the software.
Minor is not a number. Like
$10,000
relatively
well,
minor.
$10,000
I'm not hearing numbers.
Like
I'm a numbers guy.
$10,000 to $20,000 versus the million. That's
Wait,
why
did I
that's
just
what-
say
that's
I'm a
what we call it
numbers guy?
minor.
I'm not a numbers guy.
But let me say, Sergio, that if we move to that system because of increased projects,
We'll stand on the poles.
those,
and be like, "Yo."
those projects will be the ones that'll be paying for it. I
Gotcha.
don't think it should be a
Understood.
town expense.
Yeah.
Another question. Will this impact in any way the pedestrian light at Lee? How will it will coordinate with it?
So anything, because there's a signal there that if someone hits that ped signal, it gives them a longer amount of time to cross because it is a long crossing, and if no one's there, the time's allocated better. This doesn't impact that. It's tied together where, in the future, if someone hit the ped there, that's still, I would still call it the master controller. Everything else adapts to that, but you don't reduce we never reduce the ped crossing because of other stuff. If someone hits it, the ped gets to cross.
So all the other things will change.
Yeah. Yep. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
So again, we were asked to put on the traffic presentation tonight. We did. I want to make it clear to everyone who's here, the hearing is open on all issues, not just traffic tonight, because, we had our one meeting, but you're allowed to come up. There is a stenographer here. If you do come up, please say your name and your address, and there's a place to sign it here, so she can make sure that you're recorded properly. And again, as I mentioned, we will have to respond in writing to any of those questions or comments that come in. Thank you, Ms.
Can you give us an estimated time if the hearing gets closed tonight? Do the estimated time for the FEIS?
Well, that
Just ballpark.
I think they have 45
depends. Are you
days.
going to send us another memo that we have to?
No.
45
Just
days
kidding,
is what
just
you
kidding,
have
just
by
kidding.
law.
What's that? No, not on our end? Do
No.
you have any sense?
No, I mean, I don't think, you know, within a month or 2 months, we should be able to start getting
I thought it was
I don't think we have
45
2
days.
months.
Yeah.
We have 45 days.
There's
for
a
it. If
45
the hearing
day-
closes, it has to be within 45 days.
Right, which can be mutually extended by the applicant and the lead agent.
But we don't have any reason to believe it wouldn't be done within that time frame. Again, unless there's a lot of an avalanche
Information.
of questions that come in.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, you know what, I'm going to start with a quick question. I know we had discussed maybe less disturbance on the site. Were you able to look into that at all?
We are, and we are designing to it.
Now
So
we need
what,
to really
what, so what we're looking at, and so it's very clear. Firstly, I have to at least try, because you're talking about the traffic, I just want to put a little framework on it, because you're asking about the software and all the rest of it. We have taken the project from 250 to 185. That is going to eliminate the townhomes that we had outside the area. And if you remember the site plan, we have the existing office buildings. Now we're basically going to be putting almost all of our structure within what's already developed and really leaving the forested area untouched. There's a little bit more that we might be able to do to move all the units inside and remove those townhomes and move the units into the building. We think we can design it that way. So in the FEIS, we may even come back with another alternative. One we're looking at may even be slightly less, around 180 units, as opposed to 185, as low as we can go. But it would all be within the buildings where the office buildings are, and we would not be removing any of that open area for where the townhomes were planned. So we are looking at that. We got a memo from the planning department on that. We're responding to what we'll have in the FEIS, but we're very optimistic that we'll be able to do that. And that's something we're doing. But I'll also mention on the numbers piece that you're looking at, as we go from 250 to 185 to 180, and there's a certain number of what that does to the revenue on your project, to make it clear again from what you heard, there's approximately 3,500 cars at the busiest time of the day, the AM peak, that go through that intersection at East Main and 6. We're talking about adding from hours 60. So we're a small percentage of what is really the existing problem, and we are offering to mitigate that by making a payment of close to $1 million for those two signals. So I just wanted to point that out. I think we're being very reasonable in our, in our offer of what we've had in our DEIS to do that. And as the supervisor pointed out, there is time when everybody else is saying there's other projects that are out there. You're right. And when they come in, these other things that need to get done certainly can get done as they add their traffic in past us. So I just wanted to mention that for.
Yeah, no,
for
and we've had this conversation, you and I. I know the number is 60 or 70 cars that you're adding, and either in the daytime or the nighttime, to the intersection, which is already, has some issues. But, it's not the number, the small number, the relatively small number that you're adding. It's that I think is kind of like the straw that breaks the camel's back on that intersection. I mean, it just cannot tolerate not even one more, forget 60 or 70.
I'll even
so the mitigation that you're proposing, I think, is necessary for the project to move forward.
We're not disagreeing. I'll even turn you around on it. Of course, there's always self-interest involved. We need it for our own residents. Who's going to want to live there? Remember, we're renting. These are not people buying. They're renting. They got to rent every year from us, right? They want to live in a place that's going to be comfortable to drive in and out of and all the rest of it. So we recognize that investment on our behalf is important. And we hope you work with the other people that come in the future to continue to improve that area. So it's going to be good for our residents as well, because these are long-term owners of that property as we go forward.
Now, that's reasonable.
So just to clarify, you guys are just, so you guys are using the same footprint of the building? Pretty much?
Almost. We think this alternative that we'll develop in the FEIS will limit the new neighborhood to where the office buildings are currently.
Footprint plus 10% or something, whatever.
Roughly the same. We're going to almost be adding almost no impervious surface to what's already there.
To pursue that point, if you didn't ask for the additional height, would that be, I think it was 142 units, again, the same footprint that you're
Well,
talking about?
honestly, if we couldn't get the additional height, we would probably make the buildings larger and we would extend out farther. That's why we want the additional height, so we can limit it to the area that's already
Why can't
disturbed.
you just reduce the number of units?
Because at this point, it wouldn't be economical. If you get down to 140 units, we can't pay for what we have to do. There's a lot of infrastructure, not just these traffic, but there's a lot of infrastructure that's got to be built to repurpose this from office to residential and all the things that we have to do. It just wouldn't be economically feasible to do that, at that number. We already started at 250. We came down and we're looking at 180 to 185, and we think that's what we can build and have a project that would be successful for us and for the community.
We're going to address that in the FEIS, I
Yes,
assume. Yeah.
yes.
Also, I think was some discussion about doing your sewer line under Route 6. Is that going to be explained in the, I don't know, it's not a topic, it's not traffic, but is that going to be detailed in your FEIS?
It was actually in the DEIS. We did look at it, and Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just, it's not going to be feasible. I think the town even said, right, that wasn't feasible. I believe that's what he said. But yes, we're happy to explain it further in the FEIS.
All right, I hadn't had that feedback from Dan, so.
Okay, so we'll go back and double check. I think that's what he had said.
Yeah, all right, I'll double check in the morning if he is left.
Okay.
It's not feasible on the side of our town engineer, or it's not feasible for your project?
I had understood that we couldn't go under the gravity because it wasn't as simple as going under. We then had to go through the golf course, I thought.
There was an understanding that they wanted to hook up to sewer as well, and we might be able to tie them together, because they were trying to do a sewer project also.
But if you don't go through the golf course, forget about the golf course for the time being. If you just do for your project, is it feasible?
I didn't think so. That my understanding was it was not. I believe that's what we had said in
Your
the DEIS.
understanding, based on Dan's feedback, based on the town, the town engineer's feedback?
That's what I had assumed, but I'll go back and look, and maybe Joe can address it.
I'm just trying to pinpoint.
Yeah,
where,
no, that's that.
Where
was
the
my
where the non-feasibility, whatever, where it came from.
So the discussion, excuse me, Joseph Rena, the principal site design consultant, project engineer. The discussion up to this point has been upgrading the pump station that's there, and we were going to tie into that. We were going to create a new pump station essentially next to the existing one and tie into that. I'm hearing that that's possibly changing.
So Dan was looking into the feasibility of running a gravity-fed sewer across, pushing under Route 6, which he thought would be a comparable price to updating the sewer pump station, but then letting us off the hook of having to revisit the sewer pump stations every 10 years, and also the actual maintenance of running that pump station.
From the town's perspective, the supervisor makes a good point.
Yeah.
That would be a home run for the residents of our town.
I thought I read that there was a line on the opposite side, but let me look.
The answer is we can certainly look into that, and we can. That's why we have an EIS and we have an FEIS that comes. We'll get you an answer.
Thank you.
We'll talk to your people and do that. I mean, especially if it's roughly the same expense to do that. There's no reason.
And look, there was definitely some engineering that had feasibility to make sure it could happen, and that's maybe that has changed. I hadn't heard that update, so we will.
And by the way, can I change my answer to how long it'll take us to do the FEIS?
It just changed. It just went up.
It may have to change.
So
based on what
if
you
that's
just
the case,
asked.
but we'll definitely.
So just so we're on the same page, right? The idea would be to eventually eliminate that pump station, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just
Okay.
want to be perfectly clear. So.
Understood that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Thank
that
you.
would be irrespective of the golf course. That's a
Yeah.
separate issue.
We will look into it and we will talk to your.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any comment from the public? So you can step
All
right
right.
up, introduce yourself, and
Ann O'Neill, Jefferson Village.
Hi, Ann.
I think that the rentals are a great idea. Jefferson Village, we do not have that many rentals, So I think that would accommodate our community. I'm just confused. Maybe you had mentioned it. What are the times of the day are peak hours? That I don't know. I don't know what you're considering that. Also, what months did you do this study? Because I'm concerned about, did you include the school buses? Because I know that Lakeland has early pickup. So was that included?
Good question.
Yeah. Also, how many, you said there's going to be 185 units in your community or 180. And you're only saying 60 cars. So I find that hard to believe.
I think it was 120, right?
No, 60 per hour.
No, in his community. How many cars is he?
122 in the PM peak. 60 going into and causing the backup. I'm just repeating because I don't want Tom to blow a gasket in the back. You will be shortly, though, John.
So I was just
Start stretching your legs.
I was very concerned about the school buses. Were they included in your study? What times of the day was it done? And also, because you do have Lakeland and you have Yorktown, their buses run in after-school activities. So I'm concerned about that.
Sure.
Also, you said 185, 180 units. How many cars are going to be in your community? That's what I'm asking. Then I think it's great.
If we could, there are a couple that are easy to just answer.
Sure.
We will answer them in the FEIS. The PM peak hour that we studied was from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. is when it was studied, and the information was collected between May and June of 2023 while the schools were open during the
Oh,
week.
good.
So the school buses were
Come
included.
back up, Ann.
So, and just so you know, for the others, is the AM peak hour was 7:15 to 8:15, and the Saturday midday peak hour was from 12 noon to 1 p.m. And again, we showed the AM peak hour because that's busier than the other two times at that intersection.
I'll clarify just one quick thing. Sorry. We actually collect data for longer than that period. We collect for a 2-hour period. Of that 2-hour period, the times that Mark said was the peak of that 2 hours.
Oh.
So for like, we collect 4 to 6. The time
That's
period.
4 to 5 was
the
when it
highest
was-
4 to 5.
Yeah.
In the morning, we collect from 7 to 9. The highest was 7:15, 8:15. And then while you're out there, you may sometimes see tubes on the road. That's our daily traffic to make sure that, for instance, we don't do an afternoon, let's say when the schools were in session, but our PM volumes are higher. So therefore, we justify that. If we can make the PM work, it kind of covers those other shoulder hours. But the hours that you see in the report was what we identify as the peak, but we collect for more hours than that.
That makes more sense because I'm like, why would they pick 7:15 to 8:15?
It's a 2-hour.
7:09
difference, and then,
to
yes.
you know.
So just
You
wanna
don't have any
clarify.
friends that are like, I'll meet you at
You know,
6:42?
Where'd you get that number
And
from?
gone.
All right, and
I don't say my name again, do I?
No.
Okay.
We know who you are.
So the study was from May to June. So May to June, I know that the schools have tests and the kids are not in school full term every day. They're probably taking a test from 9 to 10, 11 to 12, whatever. And then it was going to be the end of June because Lakeland graduates, the 16th or the 17th, and so does Yorktown. So is it really an accurate study? I'm just concerned about the school kids. And is this an accurate study for the school buses? I want it to be safe for the kids.
Thanks, Ann.
So two things. One, we will answer in the FEIS in detail, showing that the school and the school buses and how we ensured that they were part of this study and that they are accounted with it. As far as the number of cars, if you think about it, so you understand, we're only doing 1 and 2 bedrooms, right? So you're going to have, if you're down to, we use round figures, 180 units at most. You're talking about 2 cars for a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom, maybe even less. But even if you were saying 360 cars, so it would make a lot of sense if you have 360 cars in a neighborhood and you're looking at the busy intersection down below, that 120 of those cars were coming during 1 hour. Not everybody's coming all at once. And that's why we're saying 60 were going in one direction and the rest were going off in other directions. So just to get a general sense of how the numbers work.
it won't even be that much. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, that's underestimating it because the study is for 250 units of traffic that you saw in there, and that's going to be decreased to 180 But the traffic number study that you look at was based on our original proposal.
Oh, interesting to know. Thank you.
We should let them speak, and then he can answer at the end.
He wants to answer. So he said he'd let him answer the easy ones. That's fine.
It's just back and forth.
Charles O'Neill, Jefferson Village. I know my colleagues in golf and everything else come down from Mayapack, but what's going to happen now to Hill and Lee Boulevard? Because if I know there's a light down at the end, I'm going to cut down Lee or Hill Boulevard, and them lights are not synced to what they're talking about. Is it possible? I don't know. To get all the lights synced, that you, once you get on 6, you can go sail through. That's my concern, is that if I got to go to the doctor's up on Hill Boulevard, I won't be able to get back down home, you know. So it's going to be a lot of people coming down both of them streets to avoid that light that they're projecting. That's my concern.
Good evening. I'm Jesse Kempter. I live at 760 East Main Street, otherwise known as Old Route 6. I'm there 46 years, and I was there when Contractors Register was being built. I didn't understand how it got built because I thought we were residential. There's 4 driveways as you come up that road where they want to build.
Mm-hmm.
There's a group home driveway. I have 2 driveways, and my neighbor has 2 driveways. And then we have a dead end. That's all the activity that should be on that road. I never saw a traffic study being done on Old Route 6, where the stoplight is. When I moved there, they put a stop sign on the road to make it easier. The other thing, the pump station had a lot of activity. When I saw the cook truck there numerous times, so I don't know how you deal with that. Your town designated my house a landmark house. It's 1732. When Contractors Register was being built, the trucks caused damage because the weight of the, what is the weight limit on my road? What is, you know, different things like that. I remember when they were dynamiting near the bottom of the hill. I went and I said, how come I wasn't told? They said, we don't have to tell you because you're not the house that's adjacent. Dr. Lois was told. The other thing, the speed on the road. When Contractors Register was there, it was 24 hours they worked. They didn't work. And housing, just because you live in an apartment doesn't mean you go in and out, in and out. I don't know what kind of activity. You know, I still don't know how a dead end became so popular. What was the zoning at that time? I'm worried about the traffic from additional housing there. Now, when at Barger Street, there's a light at Barger. In between, they want to put 2 more lights. Then you have the light at Hill Boulevard and the other. The buses that come out from Barger for Lakeland High School are numerous. And those buses, they can't be held up. You know, kids have to get to wherever they're going. So, I mean, they're just some of the things that I question. You know, so that's my opinion, you know. But what will be, will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Good evening. Joanne Sillett, Jefferson Village. I had the pleasure of hearing from these developers. They came and spoke to the JOC a couple of months ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have a couple of questions. It started out at 250 units. Now it's lowered to 185. You're not selling, you're only renting. These were your numbers at that time when you spoke to us. 185 units. You would have outdoor parking for 278 cars. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. How does 278 cars, only 60 cars during the peak hours? I'm sorry, I didn't get that. That's one question. The other, one-bedroom unit is $3,000 per month. Two-bedroom units, $4,000 per month. I don't remember the title of Mr. Mitnick. Yes. He's the owner, okay. What will Mr. Mitnick do if he can't rent them at that price? Thank you.
Again, just to try to clarify, we'll answer the questions in the FEIS, but to clarify, the 60 out of the 270 or so, what that is during one particular hour of the day, that's the estimate of how many cars are taking one turn on one street through one intersection. They're saying there's approximately 120 of the cars from the development that will come down during the peak hour, will be going through that area, and 60 will be making one particular turn. That's why those numbers are there.
Thank you.
I think Dan wants to speak, Tim. You have to sign.
Dan Strauss, 58-year resident. Okay, I'm going to start just with a little humor. It's amazing that no one comes to these things and wants the project. Not one person. Except
I know, I say it all the
except
time.
over here, you had 50 people every night, every meeting, that wanted the project. But this one, no one comes and wants it. I'm on the record. That was my humor. It's pretty sad, actually, if you're developing the town, supposedly. But I understand what the deal is.
Yeah, the only people that come usually don't like Sylvan.
I was on the record when this Mr. Lundgarten, is that correct? When he made this first proposal, I said and I listened to what he said at the time. I said that I thought it was pretty good. I'm on the record. He's cut it down to 180 units. It's changed a lot. There's no ownership. So I'm thinking to myself, the registry, they had cars. I'm just kind of absorbing some of this stuff about the traffic and school buses. I don't understand what the school buses have any relationship to this specific project. I do understand, though, that you haven't taken into account Amazon trucks. That hasn't been mentioned. There are probably going to be more Amazon trucks going in and out of that entrance. And there's only one entrance, is that correct? One entrance? Okay. Then there are, I know school buses are in the periphery of the project, but there's going to be trucks going in there, a lot. So the registry, just as far as traffic, the registry had traffic. So that impacted the area, and I'm not quite sure if I understand with the traffic lights. And I think it's a great presentation. I wish they'd have done one here at Underhill when that was being done over here like that. Great presentation. But I don't follow the whole thing with the traffic as are they looking to improve the traffic on Route 6? Is that, I'm just saying, I'm being dead serious. Are they looking to improve traffic on Route 6 or mitigate the impact of this development? That's what I'm asking. I don't know that you need traffic lights there. I get around Yorktown, you know that. I've got around it for the last 58 years. And I don't know that you need traffic lights. The only thing as far as this project is concerned, to me, is how going in and out of their development impacts the traffic. And I'm not so sure that it's going to impact it a lot. There's 180 units now, 185, whatever it is, and they're rentals. And it's age restricted, but that doesn't mean they're not going to go to work, the people.
Of course not.
Right. Some of them may be 80 years old, I don't know, but a lot of them will be 55, 60, and they'll be still going into the city, and I think that's a great location. To me, this is the only good project that's come around, because it's right near the Parkway, right by the Parkway. So, the fact that they have cars going in and out of there, and Amazon trucks going in and out of there, is that really going to impact the traffic? I'm not so sure it is. They had traffic when the registry was there. It was different traffic.
Yeah, it was morning and night.
It was different. It was 24 hours a day, but people were coming in the morning probably, and going out at night.
But Dan, I'm hearing that you're
Now,
saying...
let me finish, please. Let me finish. So, the deal is, how much of an impact is it going to make without putting a traffic light in? That's the question to me. This project, I'm not worried about any other projects that come along. And you heard me say a couple weeks ago, the traffic studies, to me, a lot of it is kind of hogwash. It doesn't make sense. All these, that you want to do a traffic study, the whole of Route 6. What is this project going to do to impact Yorktown as far as traffic? And I'm not going into I think the other part of it is great. You want me to talk? I'll talk a little bit about the project itself. I think it's fine.
Well, can you pause for a second so I can just...
Oh, sure. You want to ask me a question? Okay,
I don't
sure.
want to ask you a question. What I just want to clarify is every
Sure.
project's going to have an impact on the entire community for multiple reasons. Good impacts, negative impacts, all of it. I think what we're proposing here is to hear how they're trying to mitigate any source of impact so things don't drastically change for what action is actually happening around that actual Taconic entrance. So I just want to be clear here. 'Cause every project has an impact.
Well, I understand that.
Okay. And I
I'm
do
not
understand
looking
that it's also different traffic.
holistically. I'm not looking holistically.
Oh, trust me, I'm not being holistic with you. What I'm just trying to say is use your words carefully. So I'm just letting you know that when you mention that, I just want to be clear. Everything has an impact, and that's why we have to vet it with this traffic study.
I understand that.
Well, that's not exactly what you're saying. You're pretty much
It's
telling me
not.
that it will not
I
have
feel,
impact.
my opinion is that there are a lot of hogwash, a lot of the traffic studies. That's
Okay,
my
but we're
opinion.
talking about this one, though.
Huh?
We're talking about just this one.
I understand that.
Okay.
Fully.
There's a lot of hogwash.
Fully.
Holistic hogwash, too.
I fully understand what's going on. That's why I'm up here.
Okay.
I'm not with Jefferson Village on this. I'm not.
They're listening as well.
That's all I'm saying. They have their thoughts. I have my thoughts. I understand that they are worried about getting to a doctor. Okay, Route 6N. You put stop signs there, you're looking for accidents. No one's told me how many accidents have happened at this intersection of 6 and 6N. You talked about accidents. How many accidents have happened there in the last 5 years? How many? Over here at Underhill, that was all they were talking about. How many accidents? How many accidents? I don't think there's...
9 in 3 years. They gave that number when they were
Okay,
talking.
how many?
Our intersection was 9 and 3.
9 in 3 years. That's not too bad.
My cousin
Depends
lost
on
The
the
way
accident.
people drive, do you think
lost
the
his-
traffic
lost his
lights are
life on
going to
the
do
turn.
any good? Do you think stop signs on 6N are going to change anything? Absolutely make it worse. London Road and Quinlan, they have accidents, a serious accident with stop signs. So I'm not in favor of that. I don't know that you need traffic lights. That's all I'm saying. I do not
Thank you,
know
Dan.
that you need traffic lights. And I think that you should take, as far as traffic is concerned, everything impacts the whole town. I understand. Those people could drive over to, right downtown to Uncle G's. Sure, they're going to impact things. But the main focus is what is the impact of this project on that corner. Otherwise, you would not be talking about it. And my feeling is that if there was no left turn coming out of their driveway, going back up 6N, that there is not necessarily that much of an impact as far as traffic is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Sarah Wilson. I spoke at the last meeting, in favor of the reduced footprint from the 250 to the 185. So I think that's great, minimizing the disturbance of the forested area that, that's currently not disturbed. So that's great news. The only two things that I wanted to address, tonight is obviously it makes perfect sense to fix the zoning, right? Move it from office park to residential. Housing up there makes perfect sense, as many people have said. But I question, again, why it needs to be zoned for senior, because we have, residents in all age groups that are in need of housing. I think it's wonderful that it's a rental housing development, because we certainly have a need for that. We have a lot of proposals that are luxury townhomes and things, 3-bedroom, huge properties. We talked about Toll Brothers' proposal that at that last meeting as well, right? This is much different than that, which is great. It addresses a need in our community. So I would only ask that, we consider perhaps, maybe there's a different zoning that would make sense as well, that would open it up to a broader demographic in the community. And then also, as Mrs. Sillick said, if you're looking at 1 and 2 bedroom apartments of $3,000 to $4,000, is there any possibility to look at a small number of smaller units that again would help to address, from an income standpoint, people in our community that might not, be able to afford at that level. But those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
I just want to go, Charles O'Neill again. I just want to go back on the record. From day one, we were in favor of this project. We said it when this young gentleman came and he explained the project. We said, great, but how are you going to get off the hill?
Yeah.
That's our main concern, was the traffic light. I don't know, it would be the OK Corral if we didn't have traffic lights. And you put stop signs up, people slow down, they don't stop. So stop signs to me is another waste of time and energy.
Thanks, Charlie.
Ken Belfer from Mohegan Lake. I'll first of all just echo what Sarah said. I think the project would be more beneficial if there was more diversity in unit size and unit price. Some smaller units and lower priced units, I think, would serve the needs of Yorktown more. I want to agree with Dan Strauss. I don't know, maybe I'm not feeling well tonight. This is unusual. I do think that I agree that the overall traffic impact, given the volume of what we're talking about there, is extremely minimal for this particular project. However, I do disagree about his comments on the need for a light or improvement of the intersection. I happen to be a user of that intersection, so I know it very well. And many, many moons ago, I was a New York City taxi driver, and I consider myself pretty good still at finding the gaps and making that left turn. But I can see that that's not the safest intersection. And I get nervous when I'm queuing up and I can't fit in the left turn lane and I'm blocking a lane of passage because I'm afraid somebody's not going to be paying attention and is going to come down and slam me from behind. So making improvements there, I think, would be a very valuable and beneficial thing and more than mitigate the traffic impact of that project, but be a benefit for the town of Yorktown. One more thing related to traffic, something that came up at the last public hearing. There was a resident that mentioned traffic getting backed up there because of trucks related to whether it's DeChico's or the other commercial businesses. And I had never seen that. And then sure enough, a week later, I make my left turn, and then I couldn't make the next left. I happened to be going to Lowe's Chiropractic then, because the cars were backed up, and I looked up ahead, and there was a truck straight across 6N that was backing into the area, the delivery area, to the rear of all those commercial stores. It's the only time I've ever seen that, but I did see that, so whoever made that comment,
Brian D. made the comment, and I've been looking for it. I haven't seen it myself yet.
Yeah. Thank
Was
you.
it a Wednesday?
Thanks, Ken.
I don't know.
I think deliveries come on a Wednesday.
Thank you, Ken.
So Ken, the issues you're saying, that's the sentiment of safety is number one for us, and that's the queuing up of the things and making that left.
Anthony Pichette. Sarah, you had a lot of same thing. I had a lot of the same questions you were going to ask. So, who specifically, and this might have been answered already, so who specifically dictates whether or not that area is age restricted? Is that a town issue? Is it a developer issue? Somewhere in between? If that could be answered, I was curious. I'm probably the minority, but well, we talked about this, like, is there a way, would there be a way to put more units in that same section and make them smaller, like Ken and Sarah were speaking to? Is there a requirement that each place has to have a certain amount of parking spots? Is that, would that be possible to reduce that? Also, I know in my area, if there were only one or two cars in each lot, that would be a nice thing. But we walk by and we see sometimes 7, 8, 9 cars in parking lots or on the street or whatever. So is there anything to mitigate that to, once again, going back to possibly reducing parking spaces? Also, I keep going back to this because I love, Sergio, your idea when you're talking about, shuttles and buses. Is there any plan? You might have talked about this already. I know there's been multiple discussions about this, so I apologize again if that's something you addressed. Is there alternate ways to get people in and out? Are there sidewalks in this place? Once again, I think that's it. Yeah, I think just my overall point is, the only real way to reduce traffic is to get cars off the road. That is the only proven way to have traffic be reduced. So if there's other ways to get people around, and also if you do reduce the age restriction, I think it would be advantageous. Younger folks would want to move in if they're, a lot of people don't like driving. A lot of people like getting around alternate ways. So that would be a way to increase that. If there's shuttles to the train station, if there's shuttles to other, just in town, or maybe add a bus stop to that location too. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Anthony.
I'm back. I just, I gather I misspoke before. The people from Jefferson Village obviously were for this project. So I must have missed a meeting or whatever. Maybe they weren't at that first meeting that I attended. In fact, thinking back, very possibly they weren't. So I misspoke, and if they're for the project, that's wonderful. Also, the attorney, I believe, last meeting or at some point said that there were no people, basically people weren't going to be walking out of there. They're going to be driving out of there. I remember he said that, or somebody for their part of their team said that. So it's not like they're going to make it walkable, so to speak, into other parts of town. Another point then I want to make is from the golf course. If there's any place in that area when you drive that I'm fearful, when I have been over there occasionally, coming out of there, I think is very, very stressful. And anyone who would attempt to make a left turn out of there, I think would be kind of not all there. So I do think that that should be taken into account for sure in any plans that are made to make this a better situation all over. Okay.
Dan,
Thank you.
the lights take care of that, Dan.
They have
The
that in
lights
their
take
plan
care of that.
with
That's
the
part of the
traffic light.
plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, just as a reminder, on September 3rd, perhaps, Dan, you didn't stay to the end. I stayed until 2 a.m. I'm not sure if you were still there. But when I got up, I said very clearly, I am not opposed to this project. So we didn't change our minds. Thank you.
Thank
Ken Belfer again. I don't usually comment so much about traffic, but I just remembered something that happened about a month ago. A contractor who was proposing a dock in Mohegan wanted to show a committee of people docks he'd built in Lake Mayapack. So he took us for a drive, and when we get to that intersection, he makes a left turn. I said, "Oh, which way are you going?" He said, "Oh, this is much quicker way to get into Mayapack." And so sure enough, he took 6N all the way in and then eventually cut back out to Route 6 right in the village of Mayapack. I don't think it's a very good route. It may be quicker. I don't think it's the safest route for through traffic. 6 is much safer, but people avoid it because of the number of lights, particularly Baldwin Place, getting through that area and afterwards. Anything that can be done to discourage that more or cut down on that through traffic, I think would be beneficial. Would be beneficial to everybody who lives along the 6N corridor in Yorktown.
Agreed.
Agree, I'm gonna put that down.
Thanks,
I'd like to answer Anthony's question about the zoning and the change from senior to straight multifamily for any age group. That's up to the town board. That's strictly there. And one of the questions that I asked, which will be answered in the FEIS, is if it was straight multifamily, what would the school impact be? Because that would be the concern. I think that's why they're going for senior, because they want to avoid having children. So I asked, that's the information that I asked for, which they should be able to get more enrollment figures from the Lakeland School District.
Well, they also look at the viability of their project, Susan, and the amenities that are offered that are geared towards specific age groups.
Yeah,
So to make the project more attractive. So the true answer is the contractor will come in with a recommendation of what they'd like to do, and it's up to the town board to decide if that works when they look at the zoning. But in reality, it's a recommendation that they're coming in saying, this is the project that we would like to build, and then we look at it. And listening to the senior advisory committee and different senior groups on the fact that we don't have an adequate inventory of housing for seniors here, that comes into play.
Well, if it's multifamily, seniors can rent all the units if they want to.
But-
All right?
but-
It's
but-
not restricted.
But the supervisor's remarks, which is why I got up, are absolutely accurate. While the school impacts, excuse me, were concerns of the town, and that would be a concern of people in the town, of what are the school impacts if you were not restricting it to a senior facility. From our standpoint, this is the type of project that we see a market for. It's a particular type of housing that you build. It's a particular type of amenity. It's at a particular level that you do it. And there are lots of projects that are out there, and you can do other types. This is the kind we want to do. They're very good at it. They're actually just under construction now in Buchanan with another project of 148 apartments. I got better than I thought. 148 apartments that we got approved in Buchanan that's being built for 55 and older. There's a type of housing that you build, and that's the kind that we've designed and we think is going to work here. If we wanted to do multifamily that was unrestricted and was for families, we would be building different size units, different types. There would be playground equipment. There would be all sorts of different things that you would wind up doing. This is the project that we've asked for, and we've asked for the zoning to support it. So it's not the school impact piece that you put in that stopped us from proposing it. That would have been up to you. This is the project that we want to build.
Have you, as the builder, done any straight multifamily?
Much. It's not that we can't. It's particular
It's-
projects, where they're located, how they're done. But frankly, the fastest growing market right now in Westchester is absolutely 55 and older. That's the demographic that's out there.
People
It's a
living
very good
longer.
market. People are desperately looking to sell their homes, downsize, and stay in the community. It's a market that's out there, and it needs to get filled quickly. That's not to say there aren't other markets that need to be filled as well. And again, this is just one project. There's lots of other projects out there where you could satisfy the other markets. But that's what we're looking to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jefferson Village, we have a 10% cap on rentals. Some condos, some of the different condos have 5%. So there isn't a big market. I don't know how many times I'm sitting in the office and somebody will knock on the door and say, do you have any rentals? And we say no. They're very rare in Jefferson Village. I think this is the great market because I don't know if I would want to spend $4,000, but again, it is, to me, it's a perfect thing for the seniors that if they are downsizing and they would like to do that. So congratulations.
Thank you for the clarification, Charlie.
And it also doesn't mean that we don't have another need for diverse housing stock as well. Because as much as you describe, please. As much as you describe, like, the playground and a different layout for families, not every family can have a bedroom for every single child and, a 2-car garage. And I think that from what I gathered from what Ken was saying and what Sarah was saying, it's like, is there a possibility, just like a senior who might not want to spend $4,000, maybe there's like a junior 1-bedroom like I used to have in the city, where it's kind of a studio with a wall, but at the end of the day, it's more affordable because as much as I don't believe in strict affordable housing, which I've had many discussions with, affordability is a struggle. Like there's so many people working and making good livings, but when eggs are $5 and milk is $7, it's hard to get out of the store. So I hear what you're saying, that you guys would have proposed a different project for that market. But I think I just want to comment that that market also has different needs.
If you know AMS and you watch them in other places, I can assure you they will be back with other projects and other types. And in most of the communities they're in, they build more than one project and not all the same project.
No, I'm aware. I just want to say that's
so
what.
Again, if this investment works and it is a development that works, my guess is they'll be back, and then we'll talk more about what the traffic is and whether they want more housing and et cetera. But absolutely. But you
No,
can't
I'm just
do
clarifying that,
everything
like,
in
not
one-
every item has to look with a picket fence. I mean, I have a very nice blended family, so I'm aware that things can look different.
Anthony Pichette, I don't know if to say it again, but that's what I was going to ask too. And I mean, the developer can make their decision on what they want to do, and obviously they want to do the 55 plus. But I kind of was going to say similar to what you're saying, like there's 55 plus, and there's also people that might not have a family, just a couple of friends, roommates. There are roommates that just live together or whatever. So it doesn't I think the idea that it's 55 plus and then just families, I think there is like folks in the middle that, you know, wouldn't need 5 bedrooms and just, you know, need that space. But if it's 55 plus, and it was when the gentleman said, like, it seems to be more advantageous if you widened and opened up the pool to more people who would want to come in. Competition for the price would unfortunately might go up a little bit, but if you widen the pool of potential renters, then that seemed to be more advantageous to a developer. But if that's specifically what they're looking for any other reason, I understand that.
Yeah,
So-
and then based
but
on,
it's
like-
not just families. I mean, there's other people besides families and seniors that I think want housing. That's all I was going to say.
No, Anthony, I agree with you. I just also want to mention, based on what you're saying, is Charlie made a good point. Like, we have a lot of seniors that Jefferson Village has to turn away. So having this market would be a good way to guide it. However, it doesn't take away that there are other individuals.
there's
yeah.
so many people that want housing.
Exactly.
I mean, seniors, yes.
So I just don't want to
I'll be there
pigeonhole.
soon, but I'm just like, yeah, I understand.
I'm almost there.
You won't be there soon, Anthony. I'm just going to, based on what has now transpired, I just want to make one other comment then. Underhill Farm is not restricted. 2 people can move over there. There's going to be rentals over there. So it's available right now. I mean, it's not just family and seniors. All of those, that's not age, it's not age restricted. Anyone can move into Underhill Farm. That's all I'm saying. It's market, I know I'm proponent of that.
Market
It's-
value.
It's market rate. That's it.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Mark, did you want to address anything now or in the?
No, I think we've had an opportunity. Obviously, we're going to answer everything in writing. We appreciate very much the opportunity. A lot of things came up today that we have to look into. But, you know, at this stage, and again, I want to point out that the board is taking us through the most stringent environmental review process permitted under New York State law. So we've gotten through the DEIS. We would appreciate that we would close the hearing. There would be a written comment period that would be there, and then we would provide an FEIS and go through all of that before there would be a final decision made. So I think we've had a very good back and forth. You've given us some good ideas that hopefully will continue to improve the project. We look forward to, you know, asking you to close the hearing tonight and let us move on to the next steps.
Joe, I'd like to do one other thing before we close. Dr. John, as he was promoted a couple of meetings ago, and Robin, did you guys have any input that you wanted to address?
No, we're going to have a memo just asking a few questions, but that's all. I don't have anything for the board.
All right.
Okay.
Just have one more question.
Sure, Jesse.
If the area gets rezoned, does my house get rezoned if I want to sell it? It's still a residential house?
Yes. All right. A motion to close the public hearing. Go on, John.
I just wanted to know if my question will be answered about if Mr. Mitnick cannot rent them at $3,000 or $4,000 a month, what will he do? An important question. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second. Thank you, Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Can I suggest that you have a written comment period for 10 days, which were required in
So Mr. McNick can answer? Yeah.
well, no, that'll go in
No,
the
that'll be
FEIS, but
the-
to give people another 10 days to put in written
Correct.
questions.
Yeah, if anyone has any other questions.
I'll give you another 6 pages if you want, okay?
Thank you.
So, motion to have written comment for 10 days.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Wait, guys, you still got another 2 hours before you can leave. It's
Where's everybody going?
a lot of people got complaints after that September 3rd meeting, like, "Oh, what are you doing out all night?" All right.
My 9-year-old does not.
All right, guys, please exit quietly.
We're going to
Still
move
the
to
meeting going on.
resolutions. Thank you. All right. So, folks, if we could keep the comment, I want to get through the resolution, so maybe we can get out before midnight. It'll be a first in a while. From the Comptroller's Office, authorize the supervisor to sign the premises access license with Verizon New York, Inc. Award bid for the preventive maintenance and on-call services of emergency generators. That bid to be awarded to Peak Power Systems, a total bid price of $38,207.30, effective October 9th, 2024. Authorize the controller to release erosion control bond in the amount of $500 to Terrence and Joan Stenstrom, number BSWPPP-047-23. Authorize the controller to release erosion control bond in the amount of $500 to Brendan Goodwin, number WP-052-23. From the Highway Department, authorize the controller to release the following tie into town drainage permit number 23002 in the amount of $1,000. Extend the bid for stone, gravel, and concrete materials for the Highway Department. And that bid received and opened December 29th, 2022. And we're going to extend to January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, so a one-year bid. We are going from the Human Resource, appoint Ava Sperling as probationary recreation assistant, job class 0269-02, effective October 21st, 2024. Authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with ESI Employee Assistance Group for an employee assistance program. From the library, authorize the library director to sign a service level agreement. From the town clerk, notice of town board meeting to be held on Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m.
So it starts at 6:30 public?
Starts 6:30 public.
Just want to make sure everyone knows that.
Resolved that the town board of the town of Yorktown will hold a town board meeting on Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at the Town Hall, 363 Underhill Avenue, Yorktown, New York, 10598. And please note that a quorum of the Parks and Recreation Commission may be present as well.
Do you want to explain that a lot of the items on that agenda will deal with Parks and Recreation issues, which is why.
Yes, it's a special meeting for Parks and Recreation issues, possibly a couple of town ones that come up by then, and the agenda will be posted in advance, of course.
And the solar moratorium.
Yes, Tom, that'll be televised. You're welcome.
Sorry? Oh, and the solar moratorium. Hopefully we can get that on there too.
Yep. From the Water Department, extend the automotive and small engine parts and equipment tools bid for 1 year, which will expire on October 19th, 2025. Authorize the Yorktown Water District to purchase 2 2025 Ford Utility Police Interceptors AWD all-wheel drive vehicles. And can I have a motion on those?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have one more to read in. Whereas on October 1st, 2024, the Chief of Police preferred disciplinary charges against a member of Yorktown Police Department, employee payroll number 300157, and whereas the Chief of Police forwarded said charges to the town board for a hearing pursuant to the Westchester Police Act of 1936, Chapter 104 of the Laws of 1936, and whereas pursuant to the Westchester Police Act of 1936, the town board suspended the police officer, employee payroll 300157, without pay effective October 2nd, 2024, until the completion of the hearing and determination on the charges, and be it further resolved that in the alternative, the town board hereby sets November 6, 2024, at 10 a.m. in the town boardroom as a date and time for the beginning of a hearing on the aforementioned charges. I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Yorktown. Have a good night.